The tension spiked instantly. Lu Yuan's chopsticks froze mid-air, and his hand instinctively reached for the fire axe leaning against the sofa. Qiu Yuan set down her bowl as well, grabbed the baseball bat from the corner, and held her breath. They exchanged a glance, neither uttering a word. Silence hung heavy in the room for 2 or 3 seconds. A second round of knocks echoed through the door. Then a voice drifted through the crack, soft and thin, tinged with faint panting. Sister Qiu Yuan, brother Lu Yuan. It's me, Su Mumu. Su Mumu. An image surfaced immediately in Lu Yuan's mind. A sweet face, eyes curved like crescent moons when she smiled, her voice soft as melted candy. He remembered Su Mumu. When they retreated upward from the first floor, she had twisted her ankle and nearly fallen. He had reached back and pulled her to safety. After steadying herself, she had looked up at him and said, "Thank you, brother," her tone sweet and gentle, eyes forming 2 bright crescents. After that, every time he passed by while hauling supplies, she would murmur, "Thank you, brother," or "You've worked hard, brother." Her voice was quiet, yet pleasant to hear. Lu Yuan had taken note of her back then. She stood out not only for her agreeable manner, but also her background. Word had it that her family ran a sizable medical equipment business. She traveled in an Alpha van, a genuine wealthy young heiress. Before the end of the world, she had ranked high in campus beauty polls and boasted a large following on Zaihongshu, a privileged young woman bathed in admiration. In the old world, Lu Yuan would only have dared to admire someone like her from afar. But now, amid the apocalypse, all her former glory meant nothing. She was merely another beautiful young woman struggling to survive. Still, Lu Yuan clearly recalled the vote initiated by Fang Yaqi. Su Mumu had not raised her hand. She had crouched quietly in the corner, silent, neither voting nor speaking. That alone made Lu Yuan think far better of her than the others. Lu Yuan glanced toward Qiu Yuan. Qiu Yuan thought for a moment and lowered her voice. Mumu is a good person. She's nothing like Fang Yaqi or Su Wan. What's more, she's a medical student from Shanghai University. Lu Yuan nodded. Medical expertise was a desperately needed skill. He walked to the door and peered through the peephole. Thick black fog filled the corridor, yet he could make out a slender figure standing outside. She wore a jaw-length bob and an off-white coat, clutching a canvas bag in one hand. She reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Her cheeks showed no streaks of tears, yet her frame trembled slightly. Lu Yuan stepped back and nodded at Qiu Yuan. Qiu Yuan stepped forward. "Mumu, is that you? Are you alone?" "Yes." The sweet voice came from outside. "I slipped out without them noticing. I even closed the door quietly when I left." Qiu Yuan asked several private questions known only to the two of them. Su Mumu answered each one quickly and accurately, even volunteering extra details. Once her identity was confirmed, Lu Yuan slid back the steel bars and unlocked the deadbolts one by one, then pulled open the door. Su Mumu hurried inside. She was undeniably stunning. Even without makeup and dressed in plain outerwear, her beauty still shone brightly. Back with the other women, she had always kept to herself, huddled in the corner, her presence overshadowed by loud personalities like Su Wan and Tang Shi. Standing before Lu Yuan now, her face was so lovely it was hard to look away. A gentle, sweet smile lingered on her features, oddly soothing to behold. "Sister Qiu Yuan, brother Lu Yuan, thank you for taking me in." Qiu Yuan gestured for her to sit and moved the bowls aside. "How did you get here? Did you run into any trouble along the way?" Su Mumu set down her canvas bag and sat upright, her tone soft. "I've been trying to slip away since this morning. I couldn't stand staying there any longer. They aren't easy to get along with. Nothing compares to brother Lu Yuan." As she said the last line, she lifted her gaze to meet his. Her curved eyes sparkled with undisguised admiration, like a lost child who had finally found someone dependable. Lu Yuan met her stare. He said nothing, but the corners of his mouth twitched faintly. The girl was lovely to look at and spoke gently, offering just the right amount of warmth, not overbearing, just comforting. Qiu Yuan was about to reply when she suddenly frowned. "This morning? What time is it now?" Lu Yuan checked his phone. "Almost 11. 11. Su Mumu stared in surprise, eyes widening. "I left at 6. She had set off at 6 and only arrived at nearly 11. For full hours. Su Mumu had wandered the corridors for 4 hours. The walk from Unit 201 to Lu Yuan's safe house took barely 3 minutes. Even with heavy fog and slow progress, 10 minutes would have been the absolute limit. Lu Yuan set down his phone. "Tell me exactly what happened on the way." Su Mumu's sweet smile faded as memories surfaced, replaced by a trace of fear. "I left my room and headed straight here. But the fog grew thicker and thicker. Before I knew it, I lost my bearings, my mind growing fuzzy. The corridor seemed to stretch on endlessly, no matter how far I walked. Later, I met an elderly woman. She said she'd come up from the lower floors. I asked if she knew where you lived, and she pointed me in the right direction. I followed her directions and eventually reached this door. An elderly woman? Lu Yuan pressed. What did she look like? What was she wearing? Su Mumu tilted her head to recall. She wore gray clothing, with gray hair and deeply wrinkled skin. She spoke slowly, but I could understand every word. She paused, seeming to realize how strange it sounded, her voice softening. Thinking back, if the fog is this thick, how could an elderly woman be wandering the corridors alone? I didn't stop to question it then. I was only focused on finding this place. Lu Yuan and Qiu Yuan shared a glance. They had long suspected the black fog disoriented people, but now Su Mumu's journey proved it. The gray mist did more than block sight, it warped perception. Without the old woman's guidance, Su Mumu might have become lost forever within the haze. As for the elderly woman, was she human, or something else entirely? If she was a monster, why had she guided Su Mumu instead of attacking her? Lu Yuan asked a few more follow-up questions. Su Mumu answered what she could, yet her recollections remained hazy, unable to offer further details. Eventually, she shook her head helplessly, repeating that she could not remember more. Just then, Su Mumu's stomach rumbled loudly. Growl. The sound was quiet, yet strikingly clear in the silent room. A faint blush rose on Su Mumu's cheeks. Her gaze drifted toward the leftover food still on the table. A small bowl held the remnants of stir-fried scallops and diced ham, now cold. Beside it sat half a bowl of leftover rice, extra from Qiu Yuan's morning meal. Su Mumu stared at the leftovers, hesitating. She then lifted her head and looked cautiously at Lu Yuan. Brother Lu Yuan, may I eat these leftovers? There's no need to heat them up for me. This will be fine. Her voice was small, her bright eyes filled with nervous anticipation, as if fearing rejection. She knew perfectly well that food was precious in the apocalypse. Leftovers were far better than nothing. It beat the hard ration biscuits they had eaten back in Unit 201 by a wide margin. She was already fortunate that Lu Yuan had agreed to shelter her. She had no right to make demands. Qiu Yuan glanced at Lu Yuan, who gave a nod. Qiu Yuan smiled. Don't eat cold leftovers. I'll heat up a self-heating rice pack for you. No, please don't bother. Su Mumu waved her hands earnestly. Truly, Brother Lu Yuan, this food is perfectly edible. Times being what they are, I won't be picky. We can't afford to waste food. She picked up the small bowl of leftovers, took her chopsticks, and popped a mouthful of cold ham into her mouth. She chewed and swallowed, a look of genuine satisfaction spreading across her face. She scooped up cold rice and ate carefully, as though enjoying a feast. Qiu Yuan stood frozen, holding the self-heating rice container, watching the scene unfold. Lu Yuan also observed Su Mumu, the former heiress chauffeured in an Alpha van, campus internet celebrity admired by countless suitors, now seated beneath a camping lamp, eating cold leftover rice with relish. A grain of rice clung unnoticed to the corner of her lips. Lu Yuan's thoughts drifted. Before the catastrophe, Su Mumu had been an admired beauty, her line of suitors seemingly endless. Now, a simple bowl of leftovers brought her such obvious joy, as though she had stumbled upon a great treasure. Circumstances could reshape a person completely. At the same time, his opinion of Su Mumu grew more favorable. She was not pretentious or entitled. She knew when to lower her expectations and did not shrink from eating leftovers. People like her stood a far better chance of surviving the apocalypse than those who clung to the belief that wealthy young ladies should never endure hardship. Elsewhere, inside Unit 201, the atmosphere felt even heavier than the day before. She ran away? She's really gone. Su Wan perched on the arm of the sofa, her expression dark. Su Mumu? That quiet, sweet girl? She slipped off without a single word. I saw her sitting in the corner this morning, Tang Shi recalled. After that, no one kept an eye on her. None of us knew when she left. She didn't even bother to say goodbye before leaving. Always seemed so docile. Who knew she was so scheming? Another woman rolled her eyes. Humph. Obviously she went over there to curry favor, Su Wan sneered. Just to get more food. She threw away all her pride. She used to be the campus beauty at Shanghai University, swarmed by admirers, Tang Shi said sourly. Now she's rushing to seek shelter with a security guard. If her old suitors saw this, their whole worldview would crumble. What's so special about being a campus beauty? Su Wan curled her lip. Now she's just someone who'd run off to a man for a few scraps of food. I always said Qiu Yuan was that sort, and Su Mumu isn't any different. They put on an air of being high-minded, but deep down. Her sentence trailed off. She struggled to find the right insult. She wanted to call Su Mumu shameless, yet the girl had never wronged anyone and always spoken politely. Still, resentment simmered inside her. Why did Su Mumu get to leave? The thought of Su Mumu living comfortably at Lu Yuan's place gnawed at her. A brief silence fell over the room. The women exchanged looks, each wearing a complicated expression. No one admitted it aloud, yet bitter jealousy hung thick in the air. Zhang Bing had stood near the door, silently gnawing a ration biscuit. She swallowed the last bite and spoke up. The fog is extremely heavy today. No one goes outside. We rest for the day. Her words brought quiet relief to everyone present. Staying indoors meant no trips down to the 18th floor, no climbing stairs, no hauling supplies. Though unspoken, none of them wanted to venture out into such dangerous weather. No one bothered to wonder why the fog had suddenly thickened or what threats it might carry. They only cared about their own comfort. Zhang Bing added another remark. Save the instant noodles for later. Stick to ration biscuits for now. Her comment sparked immediate uproar. Why? We need more energy, even if we don't go out. The biscuits leave my throat parched. I can't keep eating them. I want instant noodles. Protests erupted like haggling vendors in a market. Su Wan led the complaints. Tang Shi nodded in agreement, and even Qin Yi frowned, thinking Zhang Bing's rules were too strict. Zhang Bing stood with her arms folded, waiting for the shouting to die down before speaking calmly. We have very few instant noodles left. We need to ration them carefully. If we eat them now, we'll have nothing to fall back on later. She swept her gaze slowly across every protesting woman. There was no overt threat, yet everyone she met fell silent. Su Wan opened her mouth to argue, but she held her tongue. She slumped back onto the sofa, broke her biscuit into small pieces, and chewed slowly, her jaw tensed. Quiet returned to the room, broken only by the crunch of hard biscuits. Everyone stared blankly as they chewed, as if biting into rubber soles. Then a scent drifted through the air. It was not a strong cooked aroma, but a savory, spicy blend of chili oil and seasonings, spreading slowly through the silence. Everyone stopped chewing and turned toward the smell. Gulan sat in the far corner, holding an open, transparent takeout container filled with spicy hot pot broth recovered from the 18th floor the previous day. A thin layer of congealed fat and chopped green onions floated atop the chili oil. When she stirred it, the grease melted again. She broke her ration biscuit into chunks, dipped them in the oily broth, and ate steadily, a sheen of oil glistening at the corner of her mouth. Silence stretched for several seconds, all eyes fixed on her container. The day before, they had collectively rejected the broth. Knowing Lu Yuan had eaten from it, none had been willing to touch it, preferring hunger. When Gulan stowed it away, Tang Shi had mocked her for lowering herself for food. Now, as the spicy aroma washed over them, the disgust they had felt seemed to fade away. Lin Mushuang, seated close to Gulan, stood up after a moment's hesitation. She carried her half-eaten biscuit and walked over. Sister Lan, can I dip a little? Just a small bite. Gulan looked up at her, said nothing, and pushed the container toward her. Lin Mushuang looked as though she had received a precious gift. She carefully broke off a piece of biscuit, dipped it deep in the chili oil, coated it with rich sauce, and took a bite. She froze mid-chew. The long-forgotten savory spice burst across her tongue. The richness of oil and aroma of spices chased away the dull dryness of the ration biscuit. She swallowed hard and dipped another, larger piece. It tasted incredible. Qin Yi stood next, followed by more women. Soon 7 or 8 people crowded around Gulan, some standing, some squatting, dipping their biscuits into the cold broth. A few even soaked entire chunks of biscuit in the oil, eating with expressions of pure delight, as if enjoying a lavish feast. Gulan sat at the center, her container surrounded by the crowd. She said nothing and did not complain about the throng, quietly holding the bowl. She watched the former wealthy heiresses and online influencers crowd around it, like starving children fighting over a single pot. All of them savored every mouthful. The scene was bitterly ironic. Fang Yaqi sat on the sofa watching, her lips pressed tight, her expression conflicted. She clutched half a ration biscuit in her hand, yet could not bring herself to walk over. She remained seated, observing the huddle of women eating together. She did not join them, yet she did not take another bite of her biscuit for a very long time. Back at Lu Yuan's safe house, the meal finished and dishes cleared away. The three of them sat in the living room for a while. Dim reddish daylight seeped through the curtains, casting a gray haze. The faint metallic tang in the air grew stronger, noticeable even with the doors and windows sealed shut. Qiu Yuan yawned, eyes watering from exhaustion. She was clearly worn out. The fog's too heavy to head out today. Lu Yuan glanced toward the corridor. The black mist was impossibly dense. Through the peephole, He could barely make out the shadow of the opposite wall. Qiu Yuan nodded in agreement. Su Mumu sat neatly on a folding chair, hands resting on her knees, quietly observing. We should rest. Lu Yuan stood up. There's nothing to do right now. Conserving our strength is the best plan. Qiu Yuan smiled, understanding his meaning. She stretched her neck. Mumu and I will share one room. You can take the master bedroom alone. Lu Yuan raised no objections. He and Qiu Yuan had expended a great deal of energy over the past few days. While he could endure it, Qiu Yuan's stamina was clearly depleted and she needed proper rest. With Su Mumu around now, Qiu Yuan and Lu Yuan could no longer act as recklessly as they once did. All right, Lu Yuan said. I'll take the master bedroom. You two can use the secondary bedroom. Blankets are in the cabinet. Help yourselves. Qiu Yuan led Su Mumu into the secondary bedroom. The pair rustled about, making the bed, exchanging quiet words now and then. Sister Qiu Yuan, how long have you stayed with brother Lu Yuan? Not very long. How does he treat you usually? Pretty well. He always gives me food first. Are you worn out? Maybe we should turn in early tonight. From outside, Lu Yuan overheard their conversation. He thought Su Mumu's question strayed beyond casual small talk, but he did not dwell on it. He turned, walked into the master bedroom, closed the door, and lay down. The mattress in the master bedroom was firmer than the one next door. The quilt still carried Qiu Yuan's faint scent. He closed his eyes. Soft laughter drifted over from the adjacent room, and he slowly relaxed, weariness washing over him. Inside the secondary bedroom, Qiu Yuan and Su Mumu lay side by side on the same bed. Su Mumu rambled on about trivial things, shifting topics from food to Lu Yuan, then to the black fog outside. Her voice grew softer and quieter. Qiu Yuan was already exhausted. Drowsiness wrapped around her, and soon her breathing became slow and steady. Su Mumu lay on her side amid the dim crimson glow, staying perfectly still. She listened carefully to Qiu Yuan's breathing. Once she confirmed the other woman was sound asleep, she gently pulled her arm free from under the covers and slowly sat upright. Qiu Yuan turned over, mumbled something indistinct, and slipped back into deep slumber. Su Mumu paused. She waited until Qiu Yuan's breathing steadied again before quietly climbing out of bed. Barefoot, she stepped across the floor without making a sound. Her canvas bag rested beside the bed. She knelt down, unzipped it, and pulled out a neatly folded set of clothes from the bottom. A blue and white sailor-style JK uniform with a pleated skirt, and brand new white thigh-high stockings. She had brought this along on purpose. She quickly and silently changed out of her pajamas, as if she had rehearsed the movement countless times. The blue and white sailor top fit neatly, its bow tie fastened perfectly. The skirt fell midway down her thighs, and the white stockings stretched from her ankles to above her knees. Standing barefoot on the floor with loose, slightly inward curling hair, her delicate features looked even more striking. After changing, Su Mumu glanced at her reflection in the mirror. Her sweet face, pure uniform, and the gentle curves of her legs framed by white stockings made her look exactly like the gentle schoolgirl straight out of a comic. This was her most carefully prepared look. Thinking about what she intended to do next, she took a deep breath, her heart filled with nervous anticipation. Eventually, she bit her lip, steeling her resolve. She carefully pushed open the secondary bedroom door and padded silently down the hallway on bare feet. She stopped outside the master bedroom door. She raised a hand and tapped lightly twice. Tap, tap. A short silence followed inside. Then Lu Yuan's sleepy voice came out. Who's there? Su Mumu softened her voice, a faint tremor running through her tone. Brother Lu Yuan, it's me. 2 seconds of silence passed within the room. Then the door swung open from the inside. Possessing night vision, Lu Yuan clearly saw Su Mumu standing there. She stood barefoot on the floor, toes curled slightly, like a kitten hesitating to cross the threshold. Clad in the JK uniform, with her beautiful, sweet features, the famed campus belle of Magic City stood before him once more. Lu Yuan studied her for 2 seconds, seeming to guess her purpose. He stepped sideways to clear the doorway. Come in and talk. Once inside the master bedroom, Su Mumu halted in the middle of the room, her slender fingers twisting the hem of her pleated skirt. She kept her head lowered, overcome with shyness and anxiety. Lu Yuan watched her for a moment before speaking. Why have you come over so late at night? Su Mumu clutched the skirt tighter. She remained quiet for several seconds, seemingly weighing her question over and over in her mind. Then she lifted her head. Bright glimmers shimmered in her curved eyes, and her voice was barely audible. Brother Lu Yuan, do you like me? The instant the words left her mouth, crimson flushed across her cheeks, spreading from her earlobes down her neck. Her whole face burned hot. She stood there, waiting for his reply. This was the first time in her life she had asked someone such a question. In the past, she was always the one receiving confessions. As Magic City University's campus belle, she had endless suitors and was an online goddess admired by countless people. Everyone doted on her. Talented young men, wealthy heirs, rising entrepreneurs, all kinds of outstanding men spared no effort to win her over. She never needed to ask if anyone liked her. She only had to nod at whoever she deemed worthy. Things were different now. Here she stood inside a former security guard's bedroom, wearing the JK uniform she had secretly prepared, barefoot, head bowed, like a young girl awaiting judgment as she asked whether he cared for her. Lu Yuan looked her over from head to toe. From her exquisite face and fair neck to the well-fitted sailor uniform, the white stocked legs and bare ankles. He could not deny how beautiful Su Mumu was. Her looks would draw stares anywhere. On top of that, she had a lovely, well-proportioned figure, her form subtly accentuated beneath the school uniform. Any ordinary man would be stirred by such a stunning young woman, standing before him, openly seeking his affection. But Lu Yuan did not answer right away. He thought for a moment and asked, "Why ask this?" Su Mumu met his gaze, earnestness surfacing beneath her usual gentle demeanor. "Because I want to stay by your side." Lu Yuan blinked in surprise. "I already said you can stay with our group. That's not the kind of staying I mean." Su Mumu shook her head. Her voice was quiet yet firm. "I want to truly stay, right beside you, brother Lu Yuan." As she spoke, she held his eyes, determined in a way that clashed with her earlier timid manner. Lu Yuan understood her meaning clearly. She was not talking about residing in this safe house or remaining part of their team. She wanted to belong solely to him, offering herself entirely. He stared at the girl in the sailor uniform, white stockings wrapping her legs, looking like a character pulled straight from manga. A tangled rush of emotions stirred within him. If Qiu Yuan, the mature, charming woman, had come to him like this, he would have accepted naturally, a mutual agreement between adults, each gaining something they needed. Su Mumu was another matter entirely. She was a doctor, young, sweet, pure as uncarved jade. He felt protective toward her. He hated the idea of her surrendering everything merely to survive this harsh world. Lu Yuan fell silent for 2 beats. "We need your medical skills to survive the end times." "You don't have to." Before he could finish, Su Mumu stepped forward abruptly and threw herself into his arms. She hugged him tightly, looping her arms around his waist and pressing her cheek against his chest like a small creature seeking warmth after a long struggle. Through the thin fabric of their clothes, Lu Yuan could feel her heart pounding. Rapidly. "No." Her voice came muffled against his torso, soft and tender. "There are many other doctors, but I want to be the one who matters most to you." Her hold tightened as she spoke, as though fearing he would push her away. Lu Yuan looked down at the slight figure in his embrace, quiet for a time. Then he lifted his arms and wrapped them around her. She felt incredibly soft in his grasp. Her frame was delicate and youthful, entirely unlike Qiu Yuan's mature fullness. There was a lithe freshness to Su Mumu, reminiscent of new willow shoots budding in spring. Even through clothing, he could feel the smoothness of her skin. He found himself drawing her closer instinctively. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked, pulling her nearer. Su Mumu lifted her head from his chest. Crimson still stained her features, and her expression was sincere. She blinked her beautiful large eyes and gave a small nod. I'm sure." No more hesitation lingered in Lu Yuan's mind. He leaned down and kissed her. The moment their lips touched, a strange feeling washed over him. Her lips were nothing like Qiu Yuan's. Qiu Yuan's kisses carried the warm acceptance of a grown woman. Su Mumu's lips were soft and thin, with a faint sweet freshness, akin to biting into ripe young peach flesh. It was obvious she had never kissed anyone before. Her lips grew stiff against his. She did not know how to move or regulate her breathing, drawing short, shallow gasps. Lu Yuan guided her gently, parting her lips slowly and setting a steady rhythm. She tried to follow his lead, clumsy yet earnest, like a fledgling learning to fly. They kissed for a long while. Su Mumu's rapid breathing gradually steadied. Her rigid body relaxed little by little, until she leaned limply against him. After roughly 10 minutes, Lu Yuan slowly pulled away. Su Mumu looked up. Her face burned red, her lips slightly swollen. A hazy sheen clouded her eyes, as if she had not fully returned to her senses. She met Lu Yuan's gaze and sensed the warmth in his stare, aware that they were about to grow far closer. Her voice trembled faintly. "Brother Lu Yuan, this is my first time. Please be gentle with me." Once the words left her, she seemed to exhaust every ounce of courage. She buried her face deep into his chest, the tips of her ears flaming scarlet. Lu Yuan held the young girl tucked against him and stroked her silky hair. Magic City's campus belle, admired goddess, untouchable heiress, Su Mumu, bearing all those titles, now huddled in his embrace, ears burning, trembling slightly, afraid to breathe too loudly. Few could resist such a sight. Heat stirred inside Lu Yuan. Without another word, he gently guided Su Mumu onto the bed. Are you scared? I'm not. Some time later. In the secondary bedroom, Qiu Yuan stirred slowly as consciousness dragged her out of sleep. She opened her eyes. The room was dim. The crimson twilight seeping through the curtain cracks had darkened further since bedtime. Dusk was likely approaching. She shifted her body, heavy weariness still clinging to her limbs. She stared flat at the ceiling and let out a long breath. Thoughts drifted involuntarily to recent days. Lu Yuan possessed astonishing stamina. Even though she worked out 3 times weekly at the gym, she was always left drained and shaky after spending time with him. Qiu Yuan rolled onto her side and reached out, only to touch empty sheets. She turned her head. The quilt on Su Mumu's side was thrown back. The girl was gone. Warmth still lingered in the bedding, meaning she had not left long ago. Gone to use the washroom? Qiu Yuan did not think much of it. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, her throat parched. She wanted to fetch some water to drink. She slipped on a coat, slid her feet into slippers, and walked out of the secondary bedroom. A camping lamp cast warm yellow light over a small section of the living room. She walked toward the tea table and picked up her water cup. Finding it empty, she turned toward the kitchen to refill it. As she passed the master bedroom door, she halted. Faint sounds drifted out from inside, muffled by the wooden panel. At first, Qiu Yuan paid it no mind, assuming Lu Yuan was tossing and turning in his sleep. But as she took another step forward, she heard another soft noise. She froze where she stood, the cup still in her hand. Slowly she leaned her ear against the door. The sounds within were quiet yet distinct in the silent space. Soft, muffled murmurs carrying sweet nasality mixed with faint creaks from the mattress and short, restrained gasps. Qiu Yuan lingered at the door, listening for several seconds. Then she straightened, and a subtle smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Just as she suspected. Little Mumu, she whispered to herself, quiet enough that no one else could hear. You truly are a clever girl. She had judged Su Mumu correctly. For all her sweet, innocent appearance, the young woman thought far clearer than most. She understood that simply working as a doctor would not guarantee safety in this chaotic world. She needed something solid to secure her footing, and she had chosen the fastest, most effective path. Previously, Qiu Yuan had endured Lu Yuan's attention alone, often pushed to her limits. Now that Su Mumu was here to share the burden, things would grow easier for her. As for Lu Yuan, would he be able to handle them? Still, she wondered whether the girl would even be able to stand on her feet tomorrow morning. Inside the master bedroom, quiet slowly returned. Su Mumu lay on the bed, a thin layer of sweat glistening on her forehead. Strands of damp hair stuck to her skin. A faint pallor lingered on her flushed cheeks. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, tremors rippling through her frame. Damp traces glistened at the corners of her eyes, and her lips remained slightly swollen. She felt thoroughly drained. Lu Yuan lay beside her and pulled her into his arms. Su Mumu felt light nestled against him, warm and smooth like polished jade. Every curve of her youthful body was delicate and refined, utterly different from Qiu Yuan's lush, mature figure. Qiu Yuan was ripe and full, like ripe fruit ready to burst. Su Mumu was slender and youthful, like newly sprouted buds, precious because of her inexperience. Her youth made her far less resilient, though. Toward the end, she could barely hold back quiet cries. Lu Yuan had restrained himself, yet he could tell she had reached her absolute limit. By the end, she trembled with tears in her eyes, lacking the strength even to lift a finger. Su Mumu curled up against his chest, her voice small. I'm sorry, brother Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan glanced down at her. I wasn't much help. She trailed off, too embarrassed to finish the sentence, ears flushing once more as she buried her face deeper against him. I'm too weak. Lu Yuan did not laugh. He brushed damp hair away from her forehead and spoke gently. It's all right. You were wonderful. It's normal to feel this way the first time. But doubt lingered in Su Mumu's mind, and fresh moisture pooled in her eyes. It was not pain that troubled her. She feared she had failed to satisfy him after summoning such great courage, changing into the uniform and bracing herself for everything. What if brother Lu Yuan grew disappointed in her? That was what frightened her most. Lu Yuan leaned down and pressed a light kiss to her forehead, soothing her like comforting a distressed kitten. Rest now. Stop overthinking. You are perfect. Warmth spread gently through Su Mumu's chest at his words. She snuggled closer to him, her tone soft and sweet. Thank you, brother Lu Yuan. They stayed in each other's embrace for a while longer. Lu Yuan checked the time on his phone. It was nearly 10 o'clock. He shifted carefully, preparing to rise. I need to take the night watch. Conditions within the building remained relatively safe during daytime windows. The monsters rarely emerged at midday, following predictable patterns. After dark, however, the black fog thickened. Creatures began to roam, and all manner of unexpected dangers could surface at any moment. Lu Yuan had maintained this nightly watch routine for days, refusing to let his guard slip. He climbed out of the covers and started getting dressed. He pulled on his t-shirt, zipped up his jacket, and rested his fire axe beside the bed within easy reach. Su Mumu watched him and struggled to push herself upright. Brother Lu Yuan, I'm coming with you. She never finished the sentence. The moment she lifted half her body, searing pain crashed over her like a tide. She gasped sharply and sank back onto the pillow. Her blanket slipped down from her shoulders, revealing a section of pale collarbone. Lu Yuan finished dressing and glanced back at her. Her small face was drained of color, heavy exhaustion evident in her eyes. Her body had clearly reached its limit. He walked back to the bedside and spoke softly to soothe her. Rest here. I'll secure the apartment. No one will hurt you while I'm here. His tone was calm, free of grand declarations, yet that steady assurance felt more reassuring than any oath. Su Mumu lay on the bed, gazing up at him. Her reddened eyes glistened. She thought of the dark walk out from room 201, the terror and resentment she'd felt standing in the fog knocking on this door. She thought of the nervous resolve when she'd put on her school uniform. Every hardship she'd endured felt worthwhile now. In the end times, a sense of safety was the rarest luxury, and Brother Lu Yuan could give that to her. She nodded firmly, her voice sweet and docile. All right. Lu Yuan leaned forward and gently rested his palm lightly on her forehead in a comforting gesture. He held it there for 2 seconds before straightening up. He turned and stepped out of the master bedroom, pulling the door shut behind him with a quiet click of the lock. Left alone beneath the covers, Su Mumu could still feel the gentle warmth left on her forehead. She reached up to touch the spot where his hand had rested. Then she smiled softly. She curled deeper into the quilt, like a cat that had finally found a safe nest, closed her eyes, and drifted off into peaceful sleep. Inside room 201. Night brought no peace to Unit 201. Fong Yaqi, what's that on your lips? Qin Yi suddenly sat up from the sofa, staring at Fong Yaqi as she walked out of the master bedroom, her voice sharp with the thrill of discovery. Fong Yaqi was heading toward the sofa. Her lips glistened faintly, with a fleck of leftover crumbs stuck to the corner of her mouth. She froze for a second and instinctively raised a hand to wipe her mouth, but the gesture only strengthened Qin Yi's conviction. You snuck instant noodles, didn't you? Qin Yi stood and raised her voice. We're out here choking down hardtack, while you hide in the bedroom cooking noodles alone. What are you talking about? Fong Yaqi frowned, suppressing the fleeting panic of being caught and regaining her usual composure. I only went in to tidy up some belongings. Tidying things left your mouth covered in oil. Qin Yi stepped closer. We can smell instant noodle fumes drifting out under the door. Do you think we're oblivious? At those words, the other women in the room all lifted their heads. Su Wan, Tang Shi, Lin Muxue, every pair of eyes turned toward Fong Yaqi. Tang Shi sniffed the air. I do smell something, instant noodles, I think. I smell it too. Lin Muxue chimed in. Qin Yi fixed her gaze on Fong Yaqi. Explain this. You told us to ration instant noodles, yet you eat them in secret while we survive on hardtack. Fong Yaqi's expression shifted. She tugged her shawl and wiped away the sheen on her lips, then lifted her chin defiantly. I'm the leader of this group. What's wrong with me eating a pack of noodles? I handle all the planning and worry for everyone. I burn through far more energy. Replenishing myself is only reasonable. Must you all overreact like this? She dropped the pretense entirely. A leader? Qin Yi let out a cold laugh. What exactly have you led? You spout random orders all day long, yet never lift a finger to do actual work. Did you go scavenging for supplies? Did you carry cargo? Did you scout ahead? Exactly. Su Wan sided with Qin Yi, a rare occurrence. You keep putting on the airs of a big celebrity. You're not an internet star with millions of followers anymore. No one cares for that attitude now. We already have limited supplies. You sneak noodles for yourself while the rest of us eat dry biscuits. Is this how you treat your sisters? Tang Shi added, her tone filled with indignation. Surrounded by the others, Fong Yaqi's poised mask cracked, yet she refused to back down. I fulfilled my duties. We're supposed to be sisters. Why fly off the handle over one pack of noodles? It's not some priceless resource. We can just look for more tomorrow. It was that same old line about finding supplies tomorrow. A few days prior, those words might have calmed everyone's nerves. Not anymore. After days of harsh reality and endless hardtack, a heavy sense of crisis had settled over them. These women, once pampered, had finally grasped the cruelty of the end times. They understood food was far from easy to come by. Shot her retort straight back. Find more tomorrow? How can you say that so lightly? Haven't you seen the fog outside? Do you know what lurks in the black haze downstairs? Are you certain we'll ever find more instant noodles? What about me? You won't even step outside to search for supplies, hiding indoors eating noodles. What right do you have ordering us around? Fong Yaki, tell us honestly, aside from running your mouth, what have you done each day? You even sneak food behind our backs. Unbelievable. Is this sisterhood? You get to eat well while we starve. One accusation followed another, releasing all the resentment built up over days. Fong Yaki stood trapped in the middle of the crowd, assailed by overlapping voices. She shouted back, her pitch rising higher and higher, shrill cries bouncing off the walls. She pointed fingers, accusing others. Didn't you sneak chocolate a few days ago? Only to be cut off at once. That chocolate was something I found myself. It has nothing to do with you. Fong Yaki was a fierce arguer, but the others matched her ferocity. Room 201 devolved into a noisy marketplace. Gulan sat tucked in the furthest corner, clutching half a leftover hardtack biscuit. She had remained in that posture since the argument erupted. She was watching the women shout red-faced, shoving one another. Their voices rose and fell like a flock of squabbling sparrows. A saying crossed her mind. 3 women make a drama. Right now, she was witnessing at least 5 dramas unfolding all at once. She had no intention of joining in. What good would all this shouting achieve? They were only digging their own graves. Just then, thud, 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 chaotic footsteps echoed from the hallway, hurried and heavy. Multiple pairs of feet pounded the floor, mixed with muffled, indistinct sounds. The noise drew near, then receded again, echoing back and forth along the corridor, as if something chased a crowd racing through the darkness. The quarrel inside room 201 was instantly snuffed out, as if someone had choked off every voice. Every woman twisted toward the door, eyes wide. Their flushed faces paled in an instant. Suwon's mouth hung open, the retort on her tongue trapped in her throat. Her lips trembled, and no sound came out. Tang Shi gripped a clothes pole, her fingertips whitening. Qin Yi instinctively stepped backward, tripping over the sofa leg and nearly falling. The room fell so quiet they could hear their own heartbeats. What is that sound? Someone whispered shakily. It sounds like people running. Another replied, even quieter. Lots of them. The footsteps outside persisted, drawing near and drifting away, like lost things wandering the corridor. Every so often, faint murmurs drifted through the door, unclear, guttural utterances far more unsettling than any scream. Zhang Bing had stayed silent all along. The instant she heard the commotion, she moved. She strode to the wall, grabbed the fire axe propped in the corner, and carried it to the doorway. She made no extra noise, pressing her back against the wall beside the doorframe and listening intently for several seconds. The footsteps continued to circulate outside. After confirming nothing lingered directly outside the door, she cautiously leaned her eye to the peephole. Through the lens, the hallway fog was far thicker than it had been during daylight. Gray-black mist swirled like a living entity, filling nearly the entire view. Within that churning haze, dark silhouettes darted rapidly. Their forms blurred, human outlines wrapped in fog, rushing back and forth along the corridor. Some traveled east to west, others west to east, crossing paths without collision or communication, only mechanically pacing endlessly through the mist. As they ran, they emitted fragmented, incoherent mutterings, like spirits trapped in a dream. Cold sweat beaded on Zhang Bing's forehead. She pulled away from the peephole and hissed a warning to the others behind her. Grab your weapons, quickly. The words doused everyone like a bucket of ice water. The women, frozen with fear, scrambled to seize anything usable as a weapon. Steel pipes, baseball bats, pocket knives, fruit blades, clothes poles, broken chair legs, an assortment of crude tools. Many trembled as they gripped them. Some were awkward and unwieldy to hold. No one dared speak. Everyone breathed as softly as possible. Footsteps still echoed outside. They held their breath and waited, sweat trickling down their faces, hearts pounding wildly. Meanwhile, at the far end of the corridor, inside Lu Yuan's safe house, Lu Yuan had already risen. The moment footsteps resounded in the hallway, he shot up from his night watch chair, fire axe firmly in hand, ready to strike at any second. He stood by the door, listening closely to the racket outside. The chaotic, Circling footsteps felt different from the watchful presence he had sensed on the 17th floor earlier. It was urgent, as though the figures fled from something terrifying. Qiu Yuan had woken too. She stepped out of the secondary bedroom upon hearing the noise, her hair disheveled, clutching a baseball bat. She halted half a step behind Lu Yuan, breathing lightly. She glanced toward the master bedroom and lowered her voice. Mu Mu's still asleep. Don't wake her, Lu Yuan said. She can't help in this state. Let her rest. Qiu Yuan nodded, offering no further comment. She knew Su Mu had exhausted all her physical and mental strength after arriving today. Even if roused, the frightened young girl would be unable to contribute and might accidentally make noise that drew danger. Lu Yuan's decision was sensible. The two stood side by side behind the door, axe and bat in hand, holding their breath to listen. Footsteps circled continuously, accompanied by garbled muttering, drifting near and far, like creatures trapped in the corridor searching endlessly for an exit. Then the footsteps abruptly stopped. A brief pause, followed by thud thud thud. Rapid knocking shook the door panels. Layered, hoarse cries seeped through the reinforced steel, desperate, as if torn raw from throats. Open up. Let us in. Save us. Please, save us. Voices overlapped, frantic and hysterical, as though the figures outside fled from unspeakable horror. The fog-wreathed silhouettes crowded and jostled outside, hammering relentlessly against the door. Qiu Yuan tightened her grip on the baseball bat until her knuckles whitened. The sounds were startlingly authentic, convincing enough to sound like genuine survivors begging for rescue. Her legs trembled slightly, her heart hammering in her chest, breathing growing rapid. She had seen monsters before, creatures that only charged to attack. Never anything that could knock on doors, plead for help, speak with such human-sounding voices. What exactly were these things? She subconsciously edged closer to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan felt her shift beside him, but did not turn. He simply rested a hand gently over hers where she held the bat. Stay calm. They cannot break through this door. Some of the tension left Qiu Yuan's hand beneath his touch. She drew a deep breath and steadied herself. Lu Yuan was right. As long as the door held, they were safe. The steel bars, reinforced locks, and plating had all been installed by his own hands. It was impenetrable. She had watched him build it. The pounding and cries persisted for a long time. The voices shifted from urgent to hoarse, then gradually faded, as if whatever force animated the figures drained away. Eventually, footsteps sounded again, sparse and distant, vanishing toward the end of the hallway. Silence fell. Qiu Yuan exhaled heavily, her palms soaked in sweat. Lu Yuan lowered his axe slightly, yet never relaxed his vigilance. He did not move away from the doorway or set down his weapon, maintaining a battle-ready stance. He knew quiet was no guarantee of safety. Sure enough, minutes later, new sounds came from outside. This noise was unlike the earlier commotion. Faint, almost imperceptible, a soft rustle, like fabric dragging against walls, nearly swallowed by darkness. Lu Yuan leaned to the peephole and stole a quick glance. Beneath the dim reddish glow, the narrow view captured several blurred shapes. They were not dark, pale, tinged with sickly red, as though soaked through from within. Their ashen forms drifted through the mist, moving slowly and stiffly, weightless as they floated forward. As they passed the peephole, every hair on the back of Lu Yuan's neck stood on end. He did not look any longer. He pulled away at once, returning to lean against the wall. Neither he nor Qiu Yuan spoke. They stood side by side behind the door, axe and bat in hand, waiting silently. They waited until the faint sounds faded completely. Waited for the hallway fog to slowly thin. Waited for this agonizing night to pass. The dull crimson glow outside the windows hung unchanged, like an unblinking eye coldly watching every living soul within the apartment building. Lu Yuan and Qiu Yuan kept watch until dawn. The crimson light outside never faded, yet activity in the hallway slowly died down. Hardly any noise echoed in the late hours. Once in a while, wind swept up the stairwell with a hollow gust, then silence returned. They took turns resting briefly. Neither truly slept, but they endured until daylight. Lu Yuan approached the door again and peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No trace of the eerie silhouettes remained, and the persistent fog of previous days had vanished entirely. Visibility cleared. He could make out the red fire hose cabinet on the opposite wall and the broken emergency light mounted overhead. Apart from the dim, gloomy lighting, the corridor looked identical to how it had been before the end times. The fogs lifted. Lu Yuan spoke quietly. Qiu Yuan squeezed beside him to look through the peephole. It's completely gone. Relief crept into her tone, as if a heavy weight had lifted from her chest. Lu Yuan did not respond. He stepped away from the peephole and leaned against the wall, his expression still grim. Qiu Yuan noticed his somber mood. What's wrong? Isn't the fog clearing a good thing? It's not that simple, Lu Yuan said. The last time the fog dispersed, everything looked exactly like this. Qiu Yuan stared at him. What happened afterward? Lu Yuan fell silent for several seconds, as if recalling a painful memory. Monsters emerged. Many of our people died in that attack. Qiu Yuan's breath caught. She understood his meaning. When the fog lingered, strange creatures stayed hidden within it. Both the monsters and the wandering figures from last night seemed concealed by the haze. Once the fog lifts, they will come out. You mean, the dense fog is linked to the monsters? Qiu Yuan confirmed. Is it safer when the fog hangs around? Something like that, Lu Yuan nodded. They barely move in the fog, but once it clears, they'll head out to hunt for food. What are we going to do? Qiu Yuan asked. Lu Yuan yawned and stretched. These monsters are still easier to handle than whatever we encountered in the fog last night. We can strike them down with axes, fend them off with sticks, or simply run faster. I still have no clue what those things from last night were. We couldn't even find a way to fight them. He spoke casually, showing no trace of tension. Qiu Yuan relaxed a little, affected by his calm demeanor. Indeed, those pale, reddish figures she'd glimpsed through the cat's eye were impossible to identify as physical entities or something else entirely. If she'd had to face such creatures, she doubted she would even be able to pinpoint where her opponents were. Compared to that, the monsters that could run and bite counted as conventional threats. All right, Lu Yuan clapped his hands. Let's get some sleep first. We'll head out during the midday window of safety. We stayed up all night. We won't have the energy to venture outside without rest. Okay. Qiu Yuan nodded. She turned to walk back to her bedroom, then paused with a thought and glanced back at Lu Yuan. Who are you planning to rest with? Me or Mumu? Lu Yuan looked at her smiling face, his gaze sweeping over her frame. Qiu Yuan wore an old t-shirt with a loose neckline revealing a section of pale collarbone. The tilted look she gave him carried the natural languid charm of a mature woman. Lu Yuan stroked his chin for a moment and smiled. I'll rest with Mumu. It's more comforting to have the young girl beside me. Qiu Yuan let out a soft huff and rolled her eyes at him. Easily swayed by new company. I suppose I'll sleep alone then. Her tone sounded faintly dejected. Lu Yuan stepped forward and pulled her into a gentle embrace. Qiu Yuan did not pull away, leaning against him and tilting her head upward. Lu Yuan lowered his head and spoke softly beside her ear. Don't worry. We'll have plenty of time later. He tightened his hold slightly around her waist. Qiu Yuan felt his warmth through the thin fabric of her shirt and tapped her fingertips lightly against his chest, her eyes glinting with playful challenge. I'll hold you to that. With that, she stepped out of his embrace and walked toward the secondary bedroom. She glanced back at him before pushing the door open, a faint smile lingering on her lips, then slipped inside and closed the door gently. Lu Yuan watched her retreating figure, his smile growing broader. He turned toward the master bedroom, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The room was quiet. The young girl on the bed remained sound asleep, covered up to her chest by the quilt. A section of fair shoulder and long hair spread across the pillow. She slept peacefully with steady breathing, her eyelashes resting lightly, flickering every now and then. Her delicate face glowed softly in the dim light, as if she had yet to wake from a pleasant dream. The sight was serene. Lu Yuan tiptoed to the bedside, took off his jacket, lifted the quilt, and slid under it. Su Mumu stirred at the movement in her sleep, shuffling closer to him and snuggling into his chest to find a comfortable position. Lu Yuan wrapped his arms around her. The girl's body was warm and soft. Qiu Yuan burned bright and intense, while Su Mumu was like calm, gentle water, soothing the tension that had lingered in his nerves all night. In the end times, it was a luxury to rest in such a warm embrace. Silence settled over the master bedroom, only the steady rhythm of their breaths floating in the faint light. The dark red glow outside the window still hung in the sky, yet it no longer felt so bitterly cold. Lu Yuan slept deeply. When he opened his eyes again, the clock showed just past 10. He shifted, feeling much more refreshed. The exhaustion from pulling an all-nighter had faded significantly. Su Mumu was still nestled against him. He intended to let her sleep longer, only to meet a pair of bright, clear eyes. Su Mumu had woken without him noticing. She lay quietly in his arms, gazing up at him with the dazed, crystalline look of someone who had just roused from sleep. You're awake. Lu Yuan smiled after she stared at him for a while. Just woke up. Su Mumu's voice carried the husky softness of sleep. She twisted slightly in his arms, adjusting her posture to settle more comfortably against him. Lu Yuan naturally held her tighter, savoring the warmth of her body pressed against his. Su Mumu nuzzled against him before speaking in a muffled tone. Brother Lu Yuan, something terrible happened last night, didn't it? I heard so much noise outside. I wanted to come help you and Sister Chiu Yuan, but she trailed off, cheeks flushing, and buried her face against his chest. Lu Yuan understood what she left unsaid. She had been far too drained to move last night. If she had forced herself outside, she would have only become another person he needed to protect. As a doctor, she logically knew she could contribute nothing in that state, yet guilt lingered in her heart. Lu Yuan stroked her silky hair gently, running his fingers slowly through the strands. It's nothing serious. We're safe now. Su Mumu nodded against his chest, the faint guilt easing away at his reassurance. Thank you, Brother Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan looked down at her sweet face and was about to reply when Su Mumu spoke again. But I'm feeling much better now. I can come out with you two later. Lu Yuan raised an eyebrow. Don't you need more rest? I'm not that fragile. Su Mumu clenched her small fist and waved it playfully, trying to prove she had recovered her strength. Lu Yuan laughed at her earnest display and tapped the tip of her nose. Very well. I'll see how you hold up later. Su Mumu giggled and snuggling deeper into his arms. After sharing this quiet moment, Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something. Let's take a shower first. Sticky skin isn't comfortable. Su Mumu fell silent for a moment. She knew she was covered in sweat and felt grimy, yet she hesitated. Maybe not. Lu Yuan looked down at her. Why? Water supplies are precious, Su Mumu said earnestly, speaking with the frugality she had learned these past few days. Taking a full shower wastes too much. I can just wipe myself clean instead. Her tone was sincere, not forced. Once a wealthy young lady accustomed to every comfort, she had adapted quickly to the harsh reality and learned to conserve resources when necessary. Lu Yuan looked at the sweet girl in his arms and curved his lips into a smile. Water is scarce elsewhere, but not here with me. Take as much as you need for your shower. Su Mumu's eyes lit up. Really? Of course. I wouldn't lie to you. A bright smile bloomed across her face. She leaned forward and pressed a light kiss to his lips before drawing back, her cheeks tinted pink. You're amazing, Brother Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan blinked in surprise at the sudden kiss and shook his head with laughter. Su Mumu pushed herself up from under the quilt, swung her legs over the edge of the bed, and hopped onto the floor barefoot. Though she still felt lingering soreness, she ignored it and smiled back at him. I'm going to shower now. Her voice was light and cheerful as she turned toward the door, then paused to glance over her shoulder. I'll come back smelling fresh. Su Mumu embodied youthful sweetness completely. She was genuinely excited by the chance to bathe freely. Before the end times, she had been a young woman who valued cleanliness above all else. It had been ages since she'd enjoyed such a luxury. Back in apartment 201, showers were an unimaginable privilege. Here, she could finally do as she pleased, and joy surged within her. Lu Yuan lay on the bed listening to her footsteps, his mood buoyant. He rolled onto his side, closing his eyes and focusing inward. A system panel materialized in his mind. Sign in available. Lu Yuan silently activated the sign-in. Text flashed across the panel before new notifications appeared. Sign-in successful. Obtained S-class supplies. Mini household nuclear generator ×1. Requires no external fuel. Operates indefinitely. Low noise design. Equipped with standard voltage conversion module. Obtained attribute point. Spirit +1 current spirit. 6-7. Obtained talent. Master vehicular proficiency. Grants expert command of all common land vehicles, specialized transport, and select engineering machinery. Lu Yuan froze for 2 seconds. A nuclear generator. He sat up and opened his eyes, glancing toward the living room. Sure enough, a matte silver metal case rested beside the coffee table. It was roughly the size of a suitcase, fitted with subtle ventilation grills, standard power sockets, and a small LCD display showing output wattage, alongside a matching power cord. Lu Yuan climbed out of bed barefoot, knelt beside the unit, and touched its sturdy casing. He pressed the power button on the side. The screen lit up, showing standby, with a maximum output marked 5000 W. No fuel, no charging, no external power source required. It could generate electricity endlessly with barely any sound. 5 kilowatts was not overwhelming, yet it could sustain all basic utilities within the safe house. Lighting, device charging, small appliances, even a refrigerator. The system's rewards grew more impressive by the day. The mysterious water tank resolved their water shortage, and now this generator solved their power needs. Piece by piece, he was building the essential infrastructure for this apartment. If he kept this up, he could transform the space into a fully self-sufficient fortress to weather the end times. Even if the world outside descended into total chaos, he could live comfortably within these walls. He stood and turned his attention to the second reward. Spirit +1. He had previously gained strength and stamina points, and this marked his first spirit upgrade. A warm sensation spread outward from his chest, different from the muscular heat of prior attribute boosts. A cool current flowed down from his forehead, washing over every taut nerve. He closed his eyes and focused. Lingering mental fatigue melted away like a receding tide. His thoughts sharpened instantly. Though he had slept after staying up all night, a faint mental fog had remained. Now it vanished entirely, and his reaction speed sharpened noticeably. He mentally reviewed their inventory list. Figures that once required conscious effort to recall were now crystal clear in his mind, down to exact quantities. It felt as though his mind had grown younger, his thinking and reflexes quicker. This spirit boost was incredibly valuable. Lu Yuan's mood lifted further as he examined the third reward, Master Vehicular Proficiency. Knowledge of driving all manner of vehicles and engineering equipment flooded his mind, as if he possessed decades of practical experience. A highly useful skill. Only, Lu Yuan chuckled to himself at their current situation. What vehicle could he drive inside this high-rise building? A shopping cart? Not even an electric tricycle was available. Though useless right now, he would eventually leave this building. Master driving ability would be an invaluable asset in the end times. Racing across broken roads, maneuvering through danger, the thought alone stirred excitement. He would keep the talent ready for future use. Lu Yuan was thoroughly satisfied with today's sign and reward. The nuclear generator alone made it an incredible gain. The attribute boost and driving talent were welcome bonuses, sharpening his mind and preparing him for the road ahead. He patted the silver generator case and carefully moved it to the corner of the room. Standing back, he watched it catch the faint glow of the camping lamp. Water from the mysterious tank, electricity from the nuclear generator. The two most vital resources for the safe house were secured. Lu Yuan stretched. He planned to install the generator after they returned. Setting it up would require careful study. For now, they needed to seize the safety window to scavenge more supplies. Even with the system's support, he could not afford to grow complacent. Resources remained critical. He hummed quietly, imagining the improvements reliable power would bring. Flashlights would no longer need disposable batteries. He could replace the gas stove with an induction cooker, swap dim camping lamps for bright LED lighting. Life within the apartment would grow far more comfortable. Meanwhile, inside apartment 201, the atmosphere hung heavy with tension. Nearly everyone huddled in place. Some hugged their knees on the sofa. Others sat against the wall. Several buried their heads in their arms. All wore ashen, pale faces. No one had slept well the previous night. The noises echoing down the corridor had terrified them. Knocking, distant cries, shuffling footsteps. The unknown entities had battered not only Lu Yuan's door, but theirs as well. These privileged young women reacted far more intensely than Lu Yuan. Clutching flimsy kitchen knives and clothes rails, they trembled as the door shook under repeated impacts, listening to indistinct shouts outside. For hours, they feared the barrier would break, and whatever lurked in the hallway would tear them apart. That night taught these sheltered women the true meaning of terror. Fear of monsters paled in comparison to the constant dread of imminent death. Throughout the endless hours of anxiety, the same thoughts circled through many minds. If only Lu Yuan were still here. Zhang Bing was capable and brave, standing guard at the door with an axe in hand. Yet she was only one woman. When facing unknown horrors in the dark, a man's presence offered a unique sense of stability, even if he did nothing. Men naturally became anchors and pillars in such moments. This was not a debate about female independence. It was rooted in basic human psychology. Regret weighed on most of them. They should never have driven Lu Yuan away. But it was too late for second thoughts. Fang Yaqi sat on the main sofa, her features tight with strain. She had also spent half the night hiding under her covers, listening anxiously to every sound outside. Now that quiet had returned, she composed herself and reassumed the air of a leader. She clapped her hands to draw everyone's attention. The danger has passed. There is no need to panic. We survived another day together. This proves we can endure even without men among us. Her voice rose, carrying a note of defiant resolve. Yet her words fell flat. Only a few people lifted their heads, their eyes vacant and listless. Suwon stared at her lap, clutching an unopened pack of compressed biscuits as if it were her last hope. Tang Shi rested her chin on her knees, her gaze unfocused on the floor. Qin leaned against the wall without even lifting his eyelids. No one responded. Everyone was overwhelmed by despair, hunger, and exhaustion. They had spent the whole previous night on edge. Now their stomachs were empty, and all they had was a stale piece of compressed biscuit. Even the hot pot soup stock Lan Gu had brought back the day before had been finished that morning. There was not a drop left for Lu Yuan. In such a state, shouting slogans to rouse their spirits would be nearly impossible. Standing in the middle of the group, Fang Yaqi sensed the heavy gloom. She raised her voice. Sisters, do not lose hope. I know times are tough, but hardship is exactly when we need to stand united. I've noticed the black mist outside is retreating. The immediate danger has faded. When the safe window arrives, we head out to scavenge for more food. Our situation will surely improve. Fang Yaqi paused, then shifted her tone. And there's something I need to say. Some of you keep wishing Lu Yuan were here, pinning all your hopes on him. Let me make this clear. That will never happen. If Lu Yuan stayed, he would only threaten our safety. Driving him away was absolutely the right choice. Her tone turned firm, unyielding. Qiu Yuan and Su Mumu lack good judgment. Sticking with Lu Yuan, they might have been wiped out by those creatures last night. We survived. We are far better off without Lu Yuan. Her words struck a chord. The women exchanged glances, and the faint regret faded a little. Tang Shi thought for a moment and murmured, "You're right. Maybe Lu Yuan's group is having it worse than us." Su Wan nodded, speaking more to comfort herself than anything else. What if they really got eliminated last night? Then there's no point in us feeling remorse. Exactly, another woman chimed in. We've probably built Lu Yuan up in our heads. That security guard doesn't have many skills beyond picking locks. We shouldn't dwell on him. Let's focus on surviving. Seeing heads slowly lift and glimmers of self-assurance return to their faces, Fang Yaqi breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Seizing the opportunity, she turned toward Zhang Bing. Hand out all the remaining instant noodles. 1 pack per person. Eat your fill, and then we go out to search for supplies. Zhang Bing said nothing. She walked over to the stockpile, fetched the last packs of instant noodles, and passed them around one by one. As everyone received their noodles, their moods lifted noticeably. Looking at the packs in their hands, Fang Yaqi raised her voice again. If we sisters stand together, we will get through this hardship. This time, several people nodded weakly at her rallying cry. The safe window arrived. Lu Yuan slipped a bottle of water into the side pocket of his backpack and zipped it shut. Qiu Yuan stood by the doorway in a sleek black jacket, her hair tied into a high ponytail, holding an empty bag ready to carry supplies. She looked alert and steady. Su Mumu stood beside her. Though still worn out from the terrors of the previous night, color had returned to her cheeks. She looked far healthier than she had back in apartment 201. Let's go. Lu Yuan pushed open the door, and the three stepped out in a line. They had only walked a short distance when they ran straight into another group. At the far end of the corridor, Fang Yaqi's all-female team was also heading out. A ragged crowd of more than a dozen women, haggard and drained. Some had puffy eyes, others messy, unkempt hair. A few wore jackets hanging crookedly, zippers half undone. Their weapons remained the same flimsy gear, clothes poles, fruit knives, thin iron rods. None looked equipped to face serious threats. The two parties met face to face in the middle of the corridor. Fang Yaqi halted, her gaze settling on the trio opposite her. When she spotted Su Mumu, her eyes turned cold. Su Mumu wore a clean, loose light gray hoodie. Her washed hair fell softly over her shoulders, and a faint healthy blush rested on her pale face. She walked slightly slower than usual, yet she was unrecognizable compared to the dirt-streaked, withdrawn girl hiding in the corner of 201. The women behind Fang Yaqi noticed the contrast too. Su Wan stared at Su Mumu's freshly washed hair and rosy cheeks, pressing her lips together tightly. Tang Shi glanced at Su Mumu's neat hoodie, then down at her own crumpled t-shirt, swallowing hard. Fang Yaqi spoke first, her tone sharp and sarcastic. Well, look who it is. The young Miss Su. What a surprise. Even the famous campus beauty from Shanghai has learned to seek shelter with a man. Su Wan quickly joined in. Appearances can be deceptive. She always seemed gentle and quiet, yet she ran straight to a man's room. Just as I suspected. That perfect public image hides someone willing to do anything for food. Truly unexpected. Tang Shi added her own bitter remark. Su Mumu paused at their taunts, but her expression stayed calm. She knew exactly how these women thought. Arguing with them would only waste energy. Still, her silence did not mean no one would defend her. Qiu Yuan stepped half a pace forward, shielding Su Mumu behind her. She pulled a full bottle of water from her pocket, then retrieved a pack of beef jerky from her backpack and handed both to Su Mumu. She smiled gently, her voice quiet yet loud enough for everyone opposite to hear. Mumu, have something to eat and drink. You endured a great deal yesterday. Eat well to regain your strength. Su Mumu blinked in surprise. She took the water and beef jerky, glanced at Xiao Yuan, then at Fang Yaqi's group. She immediately caught Xiao Yuan's intention. She smiled, twisting open the water bottle to take a sip. After screwing the cap back on, she tore open the jerky packaging, took a strip and bit into it, her cheeks puffing out slightly as she chewed. Seeing Su Mumu eating, Xiao Yuan smiled and added loudly, "Pay no mind to those narrow-minded women. Lu Yuan has plenty of beef jerky and bottled water. You can have as much as you want. When we grow tired later, we can head back, take hot showers, and rest comfortably. Such comforts are out of their reach. It's only natural they're envious." Her words landed like a slap across the faces of the opposing women. Beef jerky, bottled water, hot showers. Each phrase struck their deepest vulnerabilities. They rationed every pack of instant noodles, gnawed dry compressed biscuits, and measured water out cap by cap. Most could barely remember what beef jerky tasted like, and hot showers were nothing more than a distant fantasy. Now Xiao Yuan stood right in front of them, casually handing bottled water and jerky to Su Mumu, saying Lu Yuan had an endless supply. It was a crushing blow. Su Yuan swallowed hard, unable to tear her eyes from the jerky strip in Su Mumu's hand. She watched Su Mumu chew, and could almost taste the savory, salty flavor spreading across her tongue. Her stomach rumbled softly, and the sound echoed clearly in the quiet corridor. Tang Shi fixed her stare on the water bottle. It was full. The cap had been opened for one sip and tightened again, water sloshing inside. Every drop of water they drank was carefully portioned. A full unrationed bottle was priceless to them. Fang Yaqi's face turned mottled red and pale. Her lips whitened, and she gripped her shawl so tightly her knuckles blanched. She could feel every woman behind her gazing at the jerky and water, blatant longing and jealousy plain to see. What stung most of all was Lu Yuan's reaction. He stood aside and did not stop Xiao Yuan. He even pulled another strip of jerky and held it out to Su Mumu. "Eat more. There's no shortage." Su Mumu accepted it with a smile. "Thank you, brother Lu Yuan." Fang Yaqi's group fell completely silent. The only sounds were Su Mumu's quiet chewing and the repeated gulp of swallowed saliva. Lu Yuan, Xiao Yuan, and Su Mumu did not linger to bicker. They walked past without another word. Their light footsteps carried them around the corridor bend, heading toward the stairwell, then faded away. Once the echoes vanished, the women remained frozen in place. Fang Yaqi snapped out of her daze, resentment rising to the surface again. She glared toward the direction the three had disappeared. Humph. The famed campus beauty lowering herself like this, all for a few pieces of beef jerky. Shameless. Exactly, Su Wan replied dryly. She was once swarmed by suitors. To throw away her pride just for food is embarrassing to witness. Selling herself for snacks, she will never amount to anything. Tang Shi piled on more bitter comments. Yet even as they spoke, their eyes glittered with turbulent thoughts. Images replayed in their heads. Su Mumu chewing jerky, lifting the water bottle to her lips. The memory of her satisfied expression made every stomach in the group growl. A dangerous thought sprouted quietly inside each woman's mind, unspoken yet shared by all. If such supplies could be gained, perhaps it was a worthwhile trade. The idea took root in their hearts. No one voiced it aloud, yet everyone sensed it growing within them. Fang Yaqi raised her voice. "Stop lingering here. We're going scavenging too. We'll find beef jerky, instant noodles, everything. Move quickly." Her shout jolted the others out of their wandering thoughts. Pulling themselves back to the task, they trailed after her toward the stairwell. Footsteps filled the staircase, reverberating against the bare concrete walls. But every woman's mind lingered on one question. Would they really find beef jerky? The stairwell was eerily quiet. After the chaos of the previous night, the air felt unnervingly clear. Lu Yuan stood at the stair landing for the 18th floor and did not continue downward. He glanced toward the steps leading to the 17th floor. The landing door was just a few steps below. No mist, no movement. The silence made the entire building seem dormant. In theory, they could safely descend to the 17th floor, even the 16th. But he did not take another step down. Something was wrong. He could not pinpoint exactly what, yet his instincts screamed that this unnatural clarity was a warning. The black mist would not retreat for no reason, nor vanish permanently. It breathed, surging and fading. Now it lay at its lowest ebb, and no one could guess what would follow next. We searched the 18th floor. Lu Yuan turned, pushed open the fire door to the 18th floor, and stepped inside. Xiao Yuan followed without asking questions. Su Mumu came right behind her. The three vanished into the corridor of the 18th floor. A few flights higher, Fang Yaqi and her team watched his choice unfold. "He's heading for the 18th floor," Su Wan said. "We spent ages searching there last time, and found almost nothing. Most apartment doors were locked tight." Should we go to the 18th floor as well? Tengshi asked. Fang Yaqi frowned and glanced toward the 17th floor. After a moment, she shook her head. No, not the 18th floor. We already combed it thoroughly. Anything valuable was taken. What's left is worthless junk. We can't break through those locked doors anyway. Wasting time there achieves nothing. She walked down a few steps and stood before the 17th floor fire door. She pushed it, and it swung open easily. The corridor beyond was equally free of mist, devoid of any eerie figures. It looked like an ordinary hallway in the early morning. The mist has gone down here, Fang Yaqi said, a spark of excitement in her voice. The 17th floor was sealed off by fog before, so we barely explored it. Now that the mist has lifted, there must be valuable supplies waiting. Food, water, all kinds of things. Her voice trailed off when she saw hesitation etched across every face behind her. Su-won clutched her thin iron rod until her knuckles whitened. Tangshi edged backward. Qin-yi bit her lip, shifting her gaze between the 17th floor corridor and Fang Yaqi. Someone whispered, but Lu Yuan warned this area isn't safe. What does Lu Yuan know? Fang Yaqi raised her volume. The mist is gone. You can all see for yourselves. The corridor is empty. What danger could there be? No one replied. No one stepped forward either. Fang Yaqi looked out at their uncertain faces and softened her tone. Don't you want beef jerky? Don't you want instant noodles? At those words, everyone swallowed heavily. The memory of Su Mumu chewing jerky surfaced again, stoking their hunger. We have to take risks if we want supplies, one woman muttered. True. No reward comes without risk. If Lu Yuan can find goods, so can we. United as sisters, we can succeed. More quiet voices joined in. Though still trembling with unease, the hesitation faded, replaced by longing fueled by visions of jerky and noodles. Relieved to see their courage reignited, Fang Yaqi pushed fully open the fire door to the 17th floor. Let's go. They filed into the corridor, their footsteps echoing as they advanced deeper into the 17th floor. More than a dozen women crowded along the passage, gripping their crude weapons, eyes sharp yet greedy as they scanned ahead. The corridor was disturbingly empty. Dim crimson daylight filtered through a broken window at the far end, casting wavering shadows. Rows of apartment doors lined both sides. Some were broken open, others firmly shut, standing like silent sentinels waiting to be breached. Fang Yaqi marched at the front, walking quickly as if competing with an unseen rival. Check every door carefully. There must be supplies somewhere. Footsteps trailed behind her, scattering into fragmented echoes down the hall. None of them noticed faint movement behind a half-cracked door deep within the corridor. The 18th floor corridor remained quiet. Lu Yuan led Xiao Yuan and Su Mumu to a tightly secured front door. He quickly disabled the lock, and they entered the apartment. The first residence held little of value. Rotting raw meat in the refrigerator filled the air with a sour stench, making all three wrinkle their noses. Still, they uncovered useful supplies inside the cabinets. 2 bundles of dried noodles, a bottle of soy sauce, a bag of salt, several cans of luncheon meat, and an unopened half-sack of rice. Lu Yuan surveyed the hall. It was modest, yet better than nothing. They packed everything they could carry into their backpacks, which were only partially filled. On to the next apartment. The second home clearly belonged to a wealthier resident. As soon as the door opened, packs of snacks and 2 unopened boxes of chocolate were visible on the coffee table. Xiao Yuan hurried into the kitchen and pulled open the cabinet, gasping with delight. There's so much here. Lu Yuan stepped forward to look. The shelves were neatly stocked. 3 10-kilogram sacks of rice, 2 sacks of flour, 2 large jugs of cooking oil, and a full selection of seasonings. In the corner stood stacks of bottled water, snack packs, and self-heating rice and hot pot meals piled high like a small hill. Does this family run some kind of wholesale business? Su Mumu knelt beside the stacks, her voice bright with surprise. Doesn't matter who they were. We take what we need. Lu Yuan emptied his backpack and began loading supplies inside. Xiao Yuan and Su Mumu unpacked their own bags to fill them as well. They worked busily for a long while. Every backpack bulged, zippers strained to stay closed, and they carried extra tote bags stuffed to capacity. He had even stuffed several packs of chocolate into his waist pouch. Have something to eat first. Lu Yuan tore open a box of self-heating rice, poured in water, and waited for it to heat up. Xiao Yuan opened her own pack, while Su Mumu unwrapped a bag of nuts. The 3 squatted beside the coffee table, sharing a simple late-night meal beneath the dim glow of a camping lantern. After eating, Su Mumu's eyes crinkled into thin slits with satisfaction. We found so many supplies just from this trip. Brother Lu Yuan, you're amazing. Her gaze toward Lu Yuan sparkled with unmasked admiration, just like an adoring fan. A grain of rice clung to the corner of her mouth, unnoticed by herself. Lu Yuan felt a smile tug at his lips as she stared at him. He was about to speak when his senses suddenly prickled. His brows knotted instantly. There was movement outside the door. It was faint, like something creeping slowly across the floor, dragging against the surface to produce a soft rustling sound. His heightened senses picked up the subtle noise clearly, and he could tell whatever it was drawing closer to the entrance. Wait, Lu Yuan lowered his voice. But it was too late. Su Mumu had already stood up. Cheerful and ready to go, she walked toward the doorway. We're all packed. Let's head out. She wrapped her hand around the doorknob and pulled the door open with a smile. In the darkness outside, a twisted shadow solidified into shape, positioned directly facing the door as if it had been lying in wait all along. The creature snapped its head upward the moment the door swung open. A deformed face, barely distinguishable, split wide in the dim light, lunging straight for Su Mumu. Watch out. Lu Yuan surged forward, moving faster than he knew he could. He swept an arm around Su Mumu's waist and hauled her sharply backward. The two stumbled and crashed to the ground together. Su Mumu staggered from the pull and landed in his embrace before rolling away. Lu Yuan's outstretched arm could not be pulled back in time. The monster's claw raked across his forearm, leaving a vivid, bleeding gash. Fresh blood seeped out at once. Su Mumu scrambled quickly to her feet and backed away. Lu Yuan rolled upright, grabbing the fire axe propped against the wall. Blood dripped steadily from the wound on his right arm, yet he paid it no mind. His gaze locked rigidly on the doorway. A monster stood there. The sight made Lu Yuan's heart sink. He had encountered countless monsters before, yet those had at least retained a roughly human shape, heads, limbs, recognizable as people even when badly mangled. This thing, however, bore no trace of humanity whatsoever. It resembled a lump of flesh crumpled and haphazardly mashed together, limbs jutting out at mismatched angles, varying wildly in length. Something that might pass for a face bulged from one side of its torso, with eyes set unevenly left and right, and its mouth located along its neck. It tilted its head where it stood in the doorway. The mouth embedded in its neck slowly stretched open, lined with rows upon rows of jagged teeth. What is that thing? Qiu Yuan's voice trembled, her grip tight on her baseball bat. Su Mumu also rose to her feet. Her face paled, but she did not scream. She pulled a pocket knife from her pocket and clutched it so tightly her knuckles whitened. Lu Yuan stepped forward to shield the two girls, his stare icy as he faced the mound of flesh. His voice was steady as stone. No matter what it is, we kill it. The words had barely left his mouth before he charged outside. He hefted the fire axe high, swinging it with his full strength toward the fleshy abomination. His speed and strength had both increased significantly. Before the monster could react, the axe blade sank deep into its side. Blood splattered across the walls. The creature let out a shrill shriek and lashed out with a twisted limb. Lu Yuan dodged sideways and brought the axe down again, cleaving through one of its limbs. The monster staggered. At that moment, Qiu Yuan swung her baseball bat from the flank, slamming it hard against its warped face and forcing it 2 steps backward. Seizing the opening, Su Mumu drove her pocket knife precisely into the flesh beside its neck and twisted it sharply. 3 against 1. Seconds later, the fleshy heap collapsed to the ground. Lu Yuan delivered one final blow that caved its skull in. Blood pooled across the floor, and a heavy stench of raw flesh filled the air. Lu Yuan gasped for breath. He stared down at the corpse, confirming it would not move again before lowering the axe. Even more grotesque than the ones we've seen before, he said. But about the same level of threat. We can handle it. Su Mumu hurried over. Seeing the bleeding wound on his forearm, her eyes grew watery at once. Brother Lu Yuan, I'm so sorry. It's my fault you got hurt. Let me bandage you. She reached for her bag to retrieve gauze. Lu Yuan glanced at the cut on his forearm. Blood still trickled down, yet the injury was shallow, little more than a minor wound to him. Wounds inflicted by these monsters carried no viral infection like those from zombies. They were just ordinary lacerations. It's fine, just a scratch. Lu Yuan flexed his fingers to test movement in his arm. We can hold off on bandaging. We need to leave now. This place isn't safe anymore. Su Mumu bit her lower lip and set aside her distress with a nod. All right. The 3 quickly slung their bulging backpacks on. Lu Yuan took the lead, gripping the fire axe, and pushed the door open to step outside. Then he froze. In the empty dark stretches of the corridor, masses of flesh began to writhe. From shadowed corners, cracks in the ceiling, and gaps between floorboards, sticky tissue surged upward as if sprouting from the ground. coalescing into twisted silhouettes on both sides of the hallway. 1, 2, 3. More kept forming. At least 7 or 8 fleshy monsters rose to their feet from every direction. They tilted their heads, opening mouths set in odd positions, letting out garbled hisses as they closed in on the 3 people in the middle of the corridor. Xiao Yuan tightened her hold on the baseball bat, and Su Mumu gripped her pocket knife. Both stepped behind Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan spun the fire axe once in his grasp. His eyes swept across the line of stinking, deformed abominations ahead, his jaw set firmly. Today, he took one step forward. The axe edge glinted coldly under the dim reddish light. We have no choice but to fight our way through. Down on the 17th floor, the all-female group reveled in their successful scavenging. Over here, there are instant noodles in this room. Tangshi pushed open a door and called out excitedly. I found cans. Spam too. Su Wan's voice rang out as she ran from another room, clutching several tin cans, eyes shining. I've got drinks. They're expired, but they should still be drinkable. Another woman shouted, holding up several unopened bottles of fruit juice. 17th floor held far more supplies than the 18th. The rooms once sealed off by black mist, left untouched for so long, now revealed their hidden stockpiles once the fog lifted. Instant noodles, canned goods, seasonings, emergency rations. Someone even uncovered an entire crate of compressed biscuits. It was vastly better than the sparse scraps left on the 18th floor. Morale among the all-female team soared. Su Wan grinned widely as she held her cans, while Tangshi stacked the instant noodles like a small mountain of treasure. Lin Muxua even found vacuum-packed marinated eggs. She tore open a pack and passed them around. The salty savor spread across everyone's tongues, and several women looked as though they could breathe properly again for the first time in ages. Fang Yaqi stood in the middle of the corridor, watching the bustling scene of supplies being carried out. She tilted her chin up, hands planted on her hips. I told you, as long as we sisters stay strong, we can keep surviving. All these supplies will sustain us for ages. It proves we don't need men at all. Right after she spoke, Zhang Bing, standing beside her, frowned. She did not join in the cheers. Clutching a fire axe, she stood at the corridor entrance, staring toward the deep crimson shadows further down the hall. Something felt wrong, though she could not put a finger on it. It was as if the subtle vibrations in the air had shifted, like something gathering from every direction. Stop searching, Zhang Bing said abruptly, urgency in her tone. We need to evacuate immediately. Fang Yaqi had been smiling, but her expression froze. Why? We've barely started looking, we still have plenty of time. This area isn't right. Zhang Bing cut her off. Something bad is going to happen. Pull back now. Fang Yaqi's smile faded slowly. She glanced at the supplies in her arms, then at the other women busily scavenging down the corridor. What could possibly go wrong? It's safe here, the fog's gone. At that exact moment, one of the female survivors ran out from deeper in the corridor, holding something high above her head, overcome with elation. Beef jerky. I found beef jerky. We can have a proper feast later. She held the packet aloft like a trophy and hurried toward the group, a bright smile plastered across her face. Then came a crisp crack. It sounded like biting into a thin cracker. Her smile remained fixed on her face, her body still running forward, but her head was gone. A massive maw lunged from behind her, tearing off her entire skull in a single bite. She did not even have time to scream. The packet of beef jerky slipped from her limp fingers and clattered onto the floor. Her headless body stumbled 2 more paces before crashing heavily to the ground. Blood gushed from the severed neck, splashing over the people standing closest to her. Everyone froze. The can slipped from Su Wan's grasp and clanged against the floor. Tangshi's eyes stretched wide, staring at the scene in utter disbelief. The headless corpse twitched, raw flesh curling at the neck stump as dark red blood spread in a large stain across the pale floorboards. The creature responsible stepped slowly out from the darkness further down the corridor, the woman's still smiling head clamped between its jaws. It crunched steadily, chewing as if savoring a delicacy. The sound of teeth grinding through bone carried several meters, thick and viscous, turning every stomach in the group. It was another grotesque fleshy monster. This specimen was 2 to 3 times larger than the ones encountered on the 18th floor. Its body was covered in a sticky black membrane, countless eyes bulging from every angle, rolling ceaselessly. Run, run, Zhang Bing's voice cut through the stunned silence. She recovered first, lunging forward and hacking her fire axe at a tentacle reaching for them, shouting at the top of her lungs. Flee! Her cry shattered the paralysis gripping the group. Screams erupted, echoing down the entire corridor. Su Wan turned and ran, abandoning all her cans without a second thought. Tang Shi dropped her stack of instant noodles and scrambled toward the stairwell. Lin Muxue grabbed Lin Mushuang's hand and sprinted for safety. The two nearly tripped over one another. Everyone stampeded toward the far end of the corridor in a panicked herd. Zhang Bing stayed behind to hold them off, swinging her fire axe again and again at the monster's flailing tentacles. She quickly realized she could not kill it, only stall it. She struck to push it back, retreated a few steps, struck once more, and kept falling back. Another survivor lagged behind, tripping and crashing to the floor. Before she could push herself up, a twisted claw shot out from the darkness, seized her ankle, and dragged her into the crimson shadows. A piercing scream followed, only to be cut short after barely 2 seconds, silenced in an instant. Nothing remained but wet chewing sounds. The rest ran faster, chaotic footsteps pounding through the stairwell. No one bothered checking on anyone else. Some fell and scrambled back to their feet. Others discarded every possession to move quicker. Weeping and shouts filled the air. Suwon sobbed uncontrollably as she ran, her lips trembling violently. The all-female group raced desperately into the stairwell, charging upward without pause. When they reached the landing between the 17th and 18th floors, the first thing they saw was a field of monster corpses. Dark and scarlet viscous fluid streamed across the floor, thick with the stench of rotting blood. 7 or 8 fleshy monster carcasses lay scattered everywhere, some split open, others with crushed skulls, severed limbs strewn beside them. The piled bodies resembled a makeshift slaughterhouse. Standing amid the remains was a single figure, Lu Yuan. He was soaked head to toe in blood. Dark stains covered his black tactical jacket, some dried, others still dripping. Streaks of blood marked his face, running along his jaw down toward his neck. In his right hand, he gripped the fire axe, shreds of flesh and thick black fluid hanging from the blade, dripping onto the ground drop by drop. He stood there, breathing heavily, his gaze sweeping over the crowd pouring out of the stairwell. Every member of the all-female group halted at once, frozen mid-flight. Suwon's mouth hung open, her breath trapped in her throat. Tang Shi stood rigid, eyes bulging. Lin Muxue squeezed Lin Mushuang's hand so hard their nails dug into each other's skin, yet neither felt the pain. They stared at the mountain of corpses, then back at Lu Yuan standing among them. One identical thought raced through every mind. Had he killed every monster on the 18th floor single-handedly? A chill crawled up every spine. This fear was unlike anything they had known before. It was all. For the first time, they truly understood that the man they had driven away was far beyond anything they could comprehend. Lu Yuan was overwhelmingly powerful. There was no time to process it further. Roars echoed up from the 17th floor. The twisted flesh creatures were climbing the stairs in pursuit. Scuffling footsteps mingled with wet, dragging sounds, growing closer by the second. Move! Lu Yuan wasted no words. He grabbed Xiao Yuan with one hand and Su Mumu with the other, spinning to dash upward. The all-female group snapped out of their stupor and followed, the stairwell filling with chaotic footsteps and ragged gasps. At the bend between the 17th and 18th floors, Lu Yuan spotted Zhang Bing. She was pressed against the wall, fire axe raised to block a charging monster. A huge gash split her left shoulder, blood soaking half her shirt. One of the monster's tentacles coiled around her ankle, while another rose high, ready to crash down onto her head. Zhang Bing's face had paled. She was clearly reaching the limit of her stamina. Yet her grip on the axe never loosened, no sign that she planned to surrender. She fought desperately, but the monster would not grant her much more time. Lu Yuan did not hesitate. He bounded down several steps, swinging the fire axe in a full arc. Leveraging his downward momentum, he drove the blade straight into the center of the monster's head. Flesh splattered. The creature's tentacles twitched, and the limb wrapped around Zhang Bing's ankle slowly slackened. He struck once more, splitting its skull completely, then reached out and seized Zhang Bing's arm. Keep going. Zhang Bing froze for a split second. She looked up at Lu Yuan, a flicker of bewilderment crossing her usual calm features. She had not expected him to come to her rescue. She recovered quickly, pushing off the ground using his grip to stand. Lu Yuan supported her as they ran upward. Blood continued to flow from Zhang Bing's shoulder, yet she did not slow her pace. Fang Yaqi and the rest of the women had already reached the higher stair landings. Suwon still wept. Tang Shi's screams reduced to hoarse whimpers as everyone scrambled upward. Zhang Bing's gaze swept briefly over the figures ahead before returning forward, her lips pressed tightly together. Lu Yuan paid no attention to the others. He only kept running alongside Zhang Bing. He held little regard for most of the all-female group, but he had always thought reasonably well of Zhang Bing. She spoke little, acted decisively, and never joined the others in pointless squabbling. He could tell she was different from Fang Yaqi and the rest. She only followed orders, bound by a work agreement. She worked as a professional bodyguard hired by Fang Yaqi. Fang Yaqi had once done her a great favor, saving her mother. Out of gratitude for that debt, Zhang Bing accepted every assignment and endured whatever hardship came her way. Lu Yuan had noticed it during those 7 days in room 201. Zhang Bing often frowned privately. Clearly, she disagreed with many of Fang Yaqi's decisions, yet she never uttered a word of protest, merely carrying out orders silently. A reserved woman by nature, she also owed a life debt. To speak up and argue was harder for her than fighting. Still, when all was said and done, she was nothing like Su Wan, Tang Shi, and the others. At the very least, she acted with her own purpose. That was why Lu Yuan could not stand by and watch Zhang Bing die at the hands of the monsters. In the end times, a powerful combatant like Zhang Bing was an invaluable asset. The iron door on the 21st floor loomed close. Supporting Zhang Bing, Lu Yuan rushed up the final steps. Su Mumu had already sprinted ahead to the doorway, yanking the door open and darting inside. Qiu Yuan followed right behind her. Once both women entered the shelter, Lu Yuan dragged Zhang Bing through the doorway and slammed the door shut hard. A click echoed as the latch slid home. Next came the dull thud of steel bars locking into their slots, one after another, until all three were secured. Leaning against the door, Lu Yuan caught his breath and listened to the noises from the stairwell outside. The snarls, scuttling sounds, and sticky squelch of flesh dragging across concrete halted on the 20th floor. The creatures did not continue climbing upward. They seemed to stop short at some invisible boundary, then gradually retreated. Their noises faded, vanishing far below. For now, the 21st floor was safe. Yet no one inside the shelter relaxed. The moment she stepped inside, Su Mumu raced toward a waterproof storage box in the corner and emptied all its emergency medical supplies onto the ground. Gauze, iodophor, tourniquets, alcohol pads, sutures, forceps, scissors, everything spread across the floor. Her movements were swift and precise. Her hands remained unervingly steady as she unwrapped bandages. "Sit down first, Brother Lu Yuan," she called without lifting her head, then turned to Zhang Bing. "Sister Zhang Bing, your shoulder wound is the worst. Let's treat you first." Zhang Bing slid down to sit against the wall. Blood still seeped steadily from her shoulder, draining the color from her face. Su Mumu knelt beside her, using scissors to cut away the fabric covering the injury, revealing a horrific gash beneath. Torn flesh curled outward along jagged edges, deep enough to expose bone. Su Mumu's brows drew tight, but her hands never paused. Cleaning, disinfecting, applying medicine, stitching, she completed the sequence fluidly. Fingers as steady as if she had performed the procedure thousands of times. Lu Yuan sat on a folding chair opposite them. Qiu Yuan knelt beside him, wiping blood from his face and hands with a damp towel. His injuries were minor, mostly superficial scrapes. A thin scab had already formed over the gash on his arm. Even so, after finishing with Zhang Bing, Su Mumu returned to re-bandage his wounds neatly. More than an hour passed before Su Mumu finished treating both of them. She sank onto the floor and let out a long breath. The wounds are stabilized for now. She glanced at Zhang Bing's bandaged shoulder. "The cut is deep. I've stitched it closed. You must be careful not to strain it and tear the sutures open." Zhang Bing nodded, saying nothing. She sat there, her shoulders swathed in gauze, blood still crusting her clothes. Her cold, impassive expression had returned. She stared at Lu Yuan in silence for a long while before speaking. "Why did you save me?" Lu Yuan leaned back against the chair, his arm wrapped in fresh bandages. He glanced over at her, his tone flat. "You covered our retreat. I could not abandon you." Zhang Bing fell quiet. She caught the distinction. He had said our retreat, not their retreat. Back in the stairwell, the all-female group had fled separately from Lu Yuan's trio. But when she blocked the landing to fight the monster, she sealed off the entire stairway. She held back beasts chasing the women just as much as those pursuing Lu Yuan's party. Regardless of who she had intended to stop at first, she had bought everyone time. She had not planned to survive that stand. The wound was too deep, and she had lost far too much blood. She had not believed she could make it to the 21st floor. Her only thought had been to hold the monsters off as long as possible. Dying while taking one of the creatures down would have felt worthwhile. But Lu Yuan had dragged her away. She hesitated for several seconds, her lips parting faintly. "Thank you." She pushed herself upright slowly. The movement pulled at her shoulder injury, and she winced, though she made no sound. Seeing her stand, Qiu Yuan asked, "Are you heading back?" Zhang Bing nodded. "Yes. She saved my mother. She only said that much, yet Lu Yuan and Qiu Yuan understood completely. Fang Yaqi had saved her mother. That life debt weighed heavily on her, forcing her to obey every order, even though she disagreed with deep down. Lu Yuan watched her, making no attempt to persuade her otherwise. Outsiders could not meddle in such matters. The debt was hers, and the choice belonged to her alone. Zhang Bing had endured everything up to this point simply to repay that favor. No one had the right to judge her. Su Mumu spoke up instead. It is still far too dangerous outside, and your injuries are severe. Fresh stitches cannot withstand strenuous activity. If you run into trouble on the way back, you might not even be able to flee. Zhang Bing glanced toward the door, then at the thick gauze wrapped around her shoulder. After a lengthy silence, she lowered herself back to the floor. Very well, she said. Qiu Yuan rummaged through the supplies and handed her a clean towel. Wipe the blood off first and change into fresh clothes. I'll get you some water. Zhang Bing took the towel and murmured another quiet thank you. She sat there, weariness softening her usual icy demeanor. Her bandaged shoulders sagged slightly, as if she had finally been granted a chance to catch her breath. Once the door to room 201 slammed shut, silence engulfed the apartment. After the last person stumbled inside, the sharp click of the locking mechanism hung in the air, as if time itself had slowed. No one spoke. Everyone remained frozen in place, some leaning against walls, others collapsing onto the floor, a few sinking to their knees, too drained to crawl back up. Su Wan sat on the ground, her back propped against a sofa leg. She planted her palms flat on the floor, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. Her head hung low, her gaze unfocused on the floorboards before her, seeing nothing. Blood splattered her clothes and face. A dried drop clung to the corner of her mouth, which she made no effort to wipe away. Tang Shi curled into a ball in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, her face buried against them. Her shoulders shook, yet she muffled all cries. Only thin, shuddering inhales escaped the space between her chest and legs. Several survivors retched. They had been unable to vomit while fleeing, but now that they had stopped, nausea surged upward again. They crouched on the floor, making wretched gagging sounds. Though nothing came out, their stomachs held almost no food at all. They were dead, truly dead. Two living women, just meters away, had their heads bitten off before everyone's eyes. Their bodies dragged into darkness and torn apart. The female team member had run forward holding beef jerky, grinning brightly, delighted at her find. Then came that crunch, and everything ended. All that remained were sounds of chewing, bones cracking. The sticky, wet noise of teeth grinding through flesh drifted faintly up the stairwell, burrowing into every listener's ears, impossible to shake off. Lin Muxue sat across from the sofa, knees drawn to her chest. Her lips drained of all color, her eyes fixed blankly forward. Pupils blown wide as if she still witnessed the horror on the 17th floor corridor. Lin Muxuang clutched her wrist beside her. She trembled too, but her grip stayed tight, clinging to the only thing stopping her from sinking into despair. Qin Yi leaned against the wall, neither crying nor speaking. She squatted motionlessly, hands limp at her sides, gaze fixed on the floor. A scrap of flesh, human or monster, stuck to the sole of her shoe, yet she did not notice it. In this moment, no one chanted slogans of sisterhood or bold female resilience. Those fantasies and rallying cries had shattered completely alongside the victim's skull. Amid that terrible crunch on the 17th floor, they finally understood. This was not an end times where women could survive simply by sticking together. This was raw, brutal reality, where death lurked around every corner. The monsters would spare no one for beauty, online fame, kindness, or looks. They cared about only one thing, whether you ran fast enough, hid well enough, and had someone beside you to pull you to safety. And just now, no one could reach those two girls. They had been dragged away, right in front of everyone. Fang Yaqi stayed locked in the master bedroom. She sat alone on the floor beside the bed frame, her back resting against the mattress, knees drawn up. Her hands rested atop her knees, her head bowed, long hair falling forward to obscure most of her face. A cashmere shawl slipped crookedly off one shoulder, sliding down to her elbow, yet she did not bother adjusting it. She did not cry. Your eyes held no tears, but the glamour that always marked the celebrity had vanished, replaced by overwhelming terror. A suffocating fear that threatened to swallow her whole. She huddled against the bedboard, trying to press herself deeper into the corner. Her fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles whitened. Images of the 17th floor corridor replayed in her mind. The woman running forward with beef jerky, smiling, then losing her head in an instant. She imagined herself in that victim's place. If the slowest runner had been her instead of those two girls, if she had hesitated even one step. She dared not finish the thought. A vastly different atmosphere prevailed inside Lu Yuan's apartment. Qiu Yuan busied herself in the kitchen for a while. Water bubbled steadily inside a pot atop the portable gas stove. She combined supplies scavenged earlier to cook a pot of steaming noodle soup, adding sliced luncheon meat and dried scallops for extra flavor. Simple fare, yet the rich aroma spread throughout the entire apartment. Dinner's ready. Qiu Yuan set bowls and chopsticks on the coffee table and called out. Su Mumu hurried over first, squatting beside the table and sniffing eagerly, a satisfied look spreading across her face. Lu Yuan walked over and sat down, picking up his chopsticks. Zhang Bing sat on the folding chair opposite him, staring at her bowl of steaming noodle soup. Oil flecks floated on the surface, mixed with chunks of luncheon meat. The scent of dried scallops and chopped green onions washed over her. Her grip tightened around her chopsticks. Back in room 201, she had not eaten a proper hot meal in days. She survived on sour hardtack and shared single packets of instant noodles, rationing every drop of broth. Here, a bowl of hot soup noodles waited, filled with meat, scallops, and seafood. Steam curled upward, stinging her eyes. She stared down at her food and did not eat immediately. Qiu Yuan sat beside her with her own bowl and noticed her hesitation. What's wrong? Nothing. Zhang Bing's voice came out hoarse, yet her tone remained calm. I just didn't think I would get to eat something like this again. She lifted her chopsticks and took a mouthful of noodles. Hot broth slid down her throat, warmth spreading slowly outward from her stomach. She chewed, swallowed, then took another bite. Su Mumu sat across from her, sipping soup gently, watching Zhang Bing quietly with soft eyes. After finishing most of her bowl, color slowly returned to Zhang Bing's cheeks. She set down her chopsticks. Her gaze drifted toward the kitchen, and she froze. Qiu Yuan was washing dishes at the sink. The tap ran open, water rushing to wash grease off the crockery, sending tiny droplets splashing outward. The running water sounded unusually loud in the quiet room, a mundane sight that felt surreal. Once the dishes were clean, Qiu Yuan rinsed the pot and twisted the faucet shut, moving casually. Zhang Bing stared at the tap for a long time. She knew room 201 had long lost running water. Every faucet on the stairwell stood dry, releasing nothing but air reeking of rust when turned. Water was rationed in tiny cups, more precious than food itself. But here, Qiu Yuan freely turned on the tap to wash vegetables and pots, letting water flow nonstop. Zhang Bing glanced toward the bathroom. Earlier, she had seen Su Mumu emerge after taking a shower. She turned to face Lu Yuan. He leaned back in his chair, finishing the last of his soup, relaxed and unhurried. You, Zhang Bing hesitated. Where do you get your running water? Lu Yuan set down his bowl and replied casually. We connected to the building's water supply pipeline. Zhang Bing fell silent. She worked as a professional bodyguard, not a plumber. Yet years traveling alongside Feng Yaqi had taught her basic knowledge of buildings and infrastructure. The building's water system relied on rooftop tanks and basement pump stations powered by electricity to maintain water pressure. The whole building had lost power ages ago, so the pumps could not possibly function. Even residual water left in rooftop tanks could not deliver steady tap flow, let alone such strong water pressure. She looked at Lu Yuan, choosing not to press further. She could tell he had no intention of elaborating. His answer had been offhand, as if he wanted to drop the subject. Still, Zhang Bing knew connecting pipelines alone could not explain the running water. This hinted at secrets she could not fathom. Proof this man wielded power far beyond her imagination. But she would not ask. Years working security had taught her a simple rule: never inquire about things that were none of your business. Once dinner ended and the table cleared, Lu Yuan dragged a silver-gray generator out from the corner and set it in the center of the living room. The case was compact yet heavy, landing with a dull thud when he set it down. Qiu Yuan, Su Mumu, and Zhang Bing all turned to look, curious. Zhang Bing had spotted the case before but never asked, and she fixed her gaze on it now that Lu Yuan brought it out. Lu Yuan lifted the lid, revealing the machine inside. It featured matte silver casing, ventilation grills, and power outlets on the side, plus an LCD panel on top. Its streamlined design looked far more advanced than ordinary equipment. Qiu Yuan leaned closer and recognized it. A generator? Yes, Lu Yuan nodded. Su Mumu's eyes lit up instantly with excitement. Brother Lu Yuan, that's amazing. You actually found a generator. Does this mean we can have electricity in the apartment? Her voice was soft and bright, brimming with hope. Until now, they relied on candles and camping lanterns for light. The dim, flickering glow always left them feeling stifled. Proper electric lighting would turn this place into a true, livable shelter. Zhang Bing poured cold water on her excitement. It is not that simple. Generators require diesel fuel to operate. Fuel consumption is substantial. Running it continuously means you will need to scavenge more oil soon. She paused. Diesel is an extremely scarce resource in this building. Finding even a few barrels would count as a major haul. And once burned, it is gone forever. Her words dampened Su Mumu's smile. Yet the girl still looked hopefully at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan did not contradict her. Instead, he smiled and turned toward Zhang Bing. Zhang Bing, do you understand electrical circuitry? Zhang Bing blinked, surprised by the question. After a brief pause, she nodded. I know the basics. Professional bodyguard training covered far more than combat skills. First aid, building structure, basic mechanical and electrical maintenance were all part of the curriculum. She was no expert, but she could run wiring and make simple connections. Help me link all the apartment circuits to this generator. Lu Yuan handed her the main power cable. Zhang Bing accepted the wire without asking extra questions. She knelt to inspect the wiring inside the distribution box, opened the main circuit breaker with tools she carried, and connected the main power cord to the generator's reserve port. Her movements were sharp and assured, every step precise. Qiu Yuan handed her tools while Su Mumu held up a camping lamp to illuminate her work. The four of them cooperated for more than half an hour until the entire apartment's wiring was fully connected to the generator. Zhang Bing checked all the connections thoroughly. Once she confirmed everything was in order, she stepped back 2 paces and looked up at Lu Yuan. It's ready. She thought Lu Yuan would start pouring diesel into the generator next. She even waited, wondering which corner he would retrieve a barrel of diesel from. But Lu Yuan did nothing of the sort. He walked over to the generator and pressed the power button on its side. The liquid crystal panel lit up, displaying a line of text, starting. Shortly after came faint buzzing sounds, soft vibrations just like current passing through circuits. There was none of the deafening roar typical of diesel generators. Then the lights turned on. The warm yellow camping lamp overhead brightened noticeably. The forgotten LED tube in the corner blinked twice before shining steady white light, flooding the entire room with clarity. A soft ding followed. The air conditioning control panel on the wall lit up, showing a string of numbers. The idle mini fridge in the corner hummed as its compressor kicked on, and temperature readings appeared on its screen. Power had returned to the whole apartment. Zhang Bing froze where she stood. She glanced at the brilliant overhead lights, then the quietly operating generator, then Lu Yuan. He held a newly lit cigarette, leaning against the wall with a faint smirk, as if asking, impressed? She knelt beside the generator and examined it carefully. There was no fuel inlet, no exhaust pipe, none of the cooling fans standard for diesel engines. The machine sat as silent as stone. Only the small liquid crystal panel on its side showed slowly fluctuating output power, indicating stable electricity supply. Where is the diesel? She heard her own voice, dry in ways she did not notice. Where is the power mode switch? Lu Yuan exhaled smoke, speaking casually. This uses new energy, cutting-edge technology. No diesel required. Zhang Bing fell silent for several seconds. She stared at the silver gray machine, then back at Lu Yuan. She stood, stepped backward, and studied him for a long moment. I'm impressed. She said only those 2 words and asked no further questions. She was intelligent. She knew Lu Yuan's explanation was merely a brush off, and that the device's origin was far more complicated than he claimed. But she also understood that some matters were better left unasked. Su Mumu was overjoyed. She hurried to tap the buttons on the air conditioning panel, then pulled open the mini fridge to feel the cool air spilling out. She spun around and trotted toward Lu Yuan. Brother Lu Yuan, we have electricity now. The air conditioner and fridge both work. You're amazing. She wrapped both arms around Lu Yuan's arm and tilted her head to gaze at him, her eyes brimming with admiration. Her choice had been correct. She would wholeheartedly stand by Brother Lu Yuan. He deserved all of her devotion. Running water and electricity were luxuries they could never have imagined back in Unit 201. Now Brother Lu Yuan had made them a reality. Qiu Yuan walked over, a relieved smile on her face beneath the bright lights. She reached up to touch the LED tube overhead. Light streamed through her fingers, casting fragmented shadows across the floor. She once thought surviving the apocalypse was enough, and brightness did not matter. Yet as light filled every corner of the room, she realized how deeply she missed this sense of normalcy. Lu Yuan felt the same way. Leaning against the wall, he watched the glowing lamps, humming refrigerator and illuminated control panels. A sense of calm settling over him. He took one final drag of his cigarette and stubbed it out in an ashtray. The dull crimson sky still hung outside the windows, yet everything inside had changed. The moment the lights switched on, this safe haven truly became a place where one could live without fear amid the apocalypse. Zhang Bing, However, watched the scene with tangled emotions. Her thoughts drifted to Fong Yaqi, who sought to compete with Lu Yuan, and the dire situation inside Unit 201. She sighed deeply. That young lady really overestimated herself. On the other side, Unit 201 stood in stark contrast to Lu Yuan's brightly lit apartment. Nearly everyone remained seated on the floor, frozen in the positions they had collapsed into after fleeing. No one had moved. Suwon sat leaning against a sofa leg, knees drawn up, trembling faintly. Tang Shi curled herself into a corner. Qin Yi rested her back against the wall, her gaze fixed blankly on the floor. Lin Muxue and Lin Mushuang huddled together. The younger sister rested her head on her elder sister's shoulder, and the elder sister wrapped an arm around her waist. Neither spoke. A stifling silence hung in the air, heavy enough to weigh on their chests and make every breath difficult. No one stood, no one spoke, no one blinked or bothered sorting through the supplies they had brought back. Instant noodles, canned food, and energy biscuits lay scattered near the doorway, ignored just like the beef jerky that had slipped from the hand of their fallen companion days earlier. Fong Yaqi had not emerged. The master bedroom door stayed shut, not a single sound coming from within. Ordinarily, she would have stood up to rally everyone with speeches, but not today. The glamorous celebrity had no rallying cries left to offer. Gulan sat in her usual corner. She twisted an unopened energy biscuit between her fingers, rubbing the edge of its packaging. She had been observing, waiting patiently. She waited for panic to fade, for screams and weeping to subside, until everyone sank into numb silence. Now, the time had come. Everyone. Her voice was not loud, yet it cut clearly through the quiet of Unit 201. Slowly, every head lifted, all eyes turning toward Gulan. Gulan set the biscuit down and sat straighter. She met the gaze of everyone present, her tone steady. I know what just happened has terrified all of us. We lost 2 companions, and my heart aches for them as well. Even so, we must pull ourselves together. You all understand by now. We struggle to survive in an apocalypse. This is no gathering, no game. If we want to stay alive, we have to face reality. She swept her eyes across every face. Some nodded faintly, some parted their lips hesitantly, others looked away, avoiding her gaze. She continued speaking. There are times when we have to yield. You all saw Lu Yuan's strength. He is powerful, overwhelmingly so. Our only chance to survive this apocalypse is to attach ourselves to him. This is our single opportunity. Silence filled the room for several seconds after she finished. Someone inhaled shakily. The first reaction after this truth was laid bare. Several lowered their heads, jaws clamped tight. Others gripped the hems of their clothing until their knuckles paled. No one voiced an objection. Every word Gulan spoke struck at the core of their predicament. These thoughts had lingered vaguely in all their minds, yet none had mustered the courage to say them aloud. Now that Gulan laid it out plainly, they could no longer avoid the truth. It was simple. They needed Lu Yuan. They needed him, not merely for his lockpicking skills or combat prowess. They needed the man himself, the presence who could calm their fears and stand on the front lines to block monsters. But a problem remained. How they had treated Lu Yuan before. They had voted to drive him out, and cheered openly once he left. Could he possibly accept them if they now begged to rely on him? Every harsh word and action from the past remained fresh, impossible to deny. Moreover, they had seen Xiao Yuan and Su Mumu. Life had treated the two well after they chose to stay with Lu Yuan. Everyone witnessed the price they had paid. Once a famed socialite of Shanghai, and the campus belle, both had surrendered themselves to earn Lu Yuan's acceptance. Every woman in the room was once a sheltered young lady, wealthy heiress, prominent socialite, or internet celebrity. None had ever imagined bowing before a man, let alone becoming someone's dependent. Yet what alternative existed if they refused? Could they keep going like this? Watch supplies dwindle, monsters grow more numerous and powerful, and witness more companions perish one after another? Who would be next to die? Suwon, Tang Shi, or herself? No one held the answer. Heavy silence descended over the room once more. Gulan said all she needed to. She did not press them further. She picked up the energy biscuit again, tore open the packaging and bit into it slowly, leaving space for each woman to weigh her choices. Her words were seeds planted deep inside every heart, slowly beginning to sprout. Some stared at the floor, fists clenched until knuckles whitened. Some bit their lips, tears glistening at the corners of their eyes, yet they refused to cry. Some gazed toward the doorway, their expressions tangled as they struggled with internal calculations. After finishing all her business, Zhang Bing prepared to leave. Before stepping out the door, thick bandages wrapped her wounded shoulder, yet she stood tall. She glanced back at Lu Yuan and spoke only one sentence. I'm heading back. Lu Yuan did not stop her. He leaned against the wall and studied her impassive face. Are you certain? Yes. Zhang Bing nodded calmly. I swore to my mother that I would always protect her. That vow will never change. She offered no further explanation or hesitation. She pushed open the door and stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind her. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway, gradually fading in the direction of Unit 201. Lu Yuan returned to the master bedroom to rest. After the chaos of the previous day, the night was quiet. Power had been restored, and the newly wired circuits banished the dim gloom that had filled the room before. Lu Yuan lay on the bed, hands folded beneath his head as he stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in his mind. The flesh monster, the ambush, the chase along the stairwell, and the two young women who had left with the all-female group. Lu Yuan had since learned they had been brutally killed by monsters. These grotesque, terrifying creatures continued to multiply within the building. The early monsters resembled zombies, horrifying yet recognizably human. Now, shadowy figures that knocked on doors and mimicked cries for help roamed the corridors, alongside shapeless masses of fused flesh far more terrifying than anything they had encountered before. A thought crossed his mind. What lay beyond the building walls? Was the outside world overrun with similar abominations? Under this blood-red sky, trapped in endless darkness, hunted by flesh-eating creatures, was there any real hope for humanity to survive this apocalypse? Lu Yuan closed his eyes. He had no answer. For now, he could only take things one step at a time. With his system to rely on, he faced no immediate danger. Hiding safely within the building and completing daily sign-ins remained his best strategy for survival. Just then, the bedroom door creaked open. A graceful figure appeared in the doorway. Lu Yuan opened his eyes and blinked in surprise. Su Mumu stood there, hand resting on the doorknob. She peeked into the room, gazing toward him shyly. She had just bathed. Damp hair fell loosely over her shoulders, accentuating her fair, delicate features. What caught his attention was her clothing. She had traded her usual pure school uniform for a thin nightgown that belonged to Qiu Yuan. Thin shoulder straps rested lightly on her shoulders, and the modest neckline revealed a sliver of collarbone. The hem fell to mid-thigh. Lu Yuan recognized the nightgown. It was not Su Mumu's. The young girl had borrowed Qiu Yuan's clothes. The innocent charm of Su Mumu paired with the delicate nightgown created a striking contrast. It was easy to guess that Qiu Yuan had given her the suggestion. Brother Lu Yuan, may I come in? Su Mumu twisted the hem of her dress, her voice shy. A faint smile tugged at Lu Yuan's lips. Of course. Okay, Su Mumu replied sweetly. Barefoot, she walked gently toward the bed. The moment she reached him, Lu Yuan reached out and pulled her into his arms. Ah, brother Lu Yuan. Before she could speak further, Lu Yuan kissed her, and she melted softly against his chest. They spent the rest of the evening enjoying each other's company. 2 hours later, Su Mumu drifted off into a peaceful sleep. Lu Yuan remained wide awake. Spending time with the gentle young woman brought him a quiet sense of comfort. Seeing her bright expressions lifted his mood greatly. Truly, she was a doctor, capable of soothing weariness in every way. When Zhang Bing pushed open the door to Unit 201, every pair of eyes snapped toward her at once. Sister Zhang Bing. Su Wan cried out first, shock and joy in her tone. You're alive. She pushed herself up against the wall. Her legs still trembled, yet relief washed over her face. Tangshi lifted her head. Her eyes remained red-rimmed, yet they lit up the second she spotted Zhang Bing. Qini stood and scanned Zhang Bing from head to toe, confirming she had returned unmaimed. All of them had assumed Zhang Bing had perished at the hands of monsters. To see her return filled them with delight. Sister Zhang Bing is incredible. Admiration colored Su Wan's voice. She escaped those monsters alone. I always knew you would make it. Exactly, Tangshi chimed in. Her voice was still hoarse, yet more energetic. I thought Sister Zhang Bing might even be stronger than Lu Yuan. This proves it. With you on our side, we will be fine. Sister Zhang Bing held off the monsters and escaped unharmed. That's extraordinary. We have our own powerful warrior. Why fear monsters? The women surrounded Zhang Bing, showering her with praise. In their eyes, Zhang Bing represented female strength. They had a formidable woman among them, someone who could rival Lu Yuan. They clung to this thought desperately, grasping for hope. Zhang Bing stood in their center, offering no response. Thick bandages wrapped her shoulder, faint traces of blood seeping out from beneath the gauze. She slowly lowered herself to sit against the wall. The movement pulled at her wound, yet she only frowned faintly. Once their chatter quieted, she finally spoke. Lu Yuan saved me. Her voice was calm, as if stating a simple fact. Yet her words silenced the room instantly. Every smile froze on their faces. Suwon parted her lips, her throat dry. What? I blocked the monster on the stairwell, but I could not defeat it. Zhang Bing explained evenly. Lu Yuan charged down from the 18th floor, split the beast open with an axe, and pulled me to safety. She paused and swept her gaze across their stunned faces. He brought me back to his safe house and treated my injuries. Without him, I would be dead. Silence hung thick in the room for several long seconds. The temperature in the air seemed to drain away, and subtle shifts appeared on everyone's faces in that instant. Suwon's lips twitched, as if she wanted to say something but swallowed the words back. Tangshi lowered her head, her gaze fixed on her own toes. The delight they had felt moments ago vanished completely. Zhang Bing watched their expressions and added another sentence. I cannot compare to Lu Yuan. I never will. Her tone remained calm, yet there was no trace of false modesty in it. It sounded more like she was stating an objective fact. She had seen Lu Yuan's safe house with her own eyes, endless lights, running tap water, ample supplies of food, and the sense of peace on Qiu Yuan and Su Mumu's faces that she had never witnessed inside Unit 201. The gap between them was unimaginably vast, like heaven and earth. How could she possibly measure up? That is why, Zhang Bing said, do not speak of such things again. No one said another word. The fleeting surge of shared optimism had been snuffed out by her statement. If even Zhang Bing admitted she was no match for Lu Yuan, what grounds did the rest of them, who were far weaker than Zhang Bing, have to argue? Gulan stepped forward from the corner. She walked up to Zhang Bing and glanced over the wound on her shoulder. The dressing was professionally done, with neatly arranged gauze and tidy bandages. You've been to Lu Yuan's apartment? Gulan asked. Yes, Zhang Bing nodded. They treated my injury there. A barely perceptible flicker crossed Gulan's eyes. She had long wondered how developed Lu Yuan's hideout was. Every time Lu Yuan, Qiu Yuan, and Su Mumu appeared, they looked healthy, and she had formed vague suspicions. But she had never known the full truth. What is it like over there? Gulan spoke softly, as though afraid of disturbing something. Suwon cut in beside her. It's probably just a little more food than Unit 201. How impressive can a shabby apartment really be? The others all turned their eyes toward Zhang Bing. Their gazes were mixed with curiosity, anticipation, and quiet unease, as if they sensed the answer would be difficult to accept. Zhang Bing began to speak slowly. Lu Yuan reconnected the building's water pipelines. Water flows freely from the taps. He also owns a new energy generator that requires no diesel. Lights run throughout the unit, and the refrigerator and air conditioner work perfectly. She paused, her tone flat as if describing events unrelated to herself. He has abundant medical supplies, food, and all kinds of resources. After those few sentences fell, silence engulfed Unit 201, as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. Several people gaped, unable to close their mouths. Qin Yi's water cup slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor, rolling a short distance before stopping. She made no move to pick it up. Lin Muxue gripped her younger sister's wrist so tightly her knuckles whitened, as if she had been struck hard on the back of the head. Tangshi leaned against the wall, staring blankly, struggling to process information far beyond what she could comprehend. They could have guessed there would be plenty of food and supplies. Every time Lu Yuan showed up, he carried abundant provisions, and the healthy color on Qiu Yuan and Su Mumu's cheeks could not be faked. But running water and electricity? It was common knowledge that power and water had failed after the apocalypse. The entire building's systems had collapsed, pipes ran dry, power lines lay dormant. Taps only exhaled air tainted with rust, and light switches no longer worked. They had long accepted this as an unalterable truth of the ruined world. Yet Zhang Bing was telling them. Lu Yuan had running water, electricity, working air conditioning, a refrigerator, hot showers, and constant lighting. Suwon was the first to break the silence. Her voice was dry, tinged with stubborn disbelief. Sister Zhang Bing, you can't be lying to us, can you? How is that possible? The building's utilities failed ages ago. Tangshi quickly chimed in, speaking rapidly. Exactly. The power grid collapsed long ago. Without electricity, the water pumps cannot function. How could he possibly? Is he some kind of magician? Several women spoke over one another, clinging to that last shred of denial, trying to resist a reality they refused to acknowledge. Zhang Bing waited until they had all finished arguing, then looked at their anxious faces and said calmly, "Do you think I would lie to you?" Her words carried little volume, yet they stood like a wall, blocking every doubt. It was true. No one suspected Zhang Bing. Inside Unit 201, anyone might twist the truth, but not her. She never wasted words, and she never fabricated stories. Everything she said was genuine. If Zhang Bing was telling the truth, Su Wan slowly sank to the floor. Only one thought looped endlessly in her mind. Running water, electricity, air conditioning, a refrigerator, brightly lit rooms. While she gnawed hard ration biscuits and ration water drop by drop from bottle caps, Lu Yuan turned on taps, adjusted air conditioning, and kept every room illuminated. While she shouted herself hoarse over half a pack of instant noodles, his refrigerator was stocked full of food, and he could even take hot showers. Suddenly, the dry ration biscuit stuck in her throat tasted unbearably bitter, as though a thick layer of dust coated her tongue. Then an idea struck her, and she spoke up. If Lu Yuan managed to reconnect the pipelines, we can too. If he found a generator, we can find one as well. What do we lack compared to Lu Yuan? If he can do it, so can we. Someone echoed her. Su Wan is right, we can do it. We simply haven't tried yet. If we make an effort, we might just. Zhang Bing leaned against the wall and regarded Su Wan with a calm gaze. There was no mockery in her voice, and that lack of scorn made her words feel all the colder. Lu Yuan succeeded because he is incredibly capable, extraordinary, and possesses methods of his own. As for you, you cannot even locate a single pack of instant noodles. What makes you believe you can accomplish such things? Su Wan was left speechless. Her lips parted repeatedly, yet not a single word emerged. The other women fell quiet too. When Su Wan first voiced her idea, a flicker of hope had ignited in some of their eyes. Zhang Bing's two sentences snuffed that light out entirely. Zhang Bing shifted her gaze away from Su Wan and continued. I know I cannot achieve such things. Restoring water and power cannot be solved merely by scavenging. The pipelines are fractured, the water pumps lack power, and the water supply system is long dead. I understand the state of this building better than anyone. You are welcome to attempt it if you believe you can. But I cannot. She could speak with such certainty because she had already tried. After the water was cut off, she had attempted pipe repairs, manual pumping, and climbed endlessly through pipe shafts searching for usable connections. She labored for 2 full days, yet all her efforts were futile. Once the water supply failed, it was gone. It was not a problem that could be fixed by casual searching. As for how Lu Yuan had pulled it off, she had no answer. She truly did not know. There was something unfathomable about that man, a mystery that made her feel as though she was observing a being that should not exist in this world. She looked over their downcast faces and said nothing more. She had said everything that needed to be said. Unit 201 sank once more into profound silence. This silence was unlike any that had come before. Earlier silences stemmed from fear, shock, or numb disbelief. This time, a heavier weight hung over them. Their understanding of the world was crumbling piece by piece. They had once believed that the group of women could survive the apocalypse on their own, that they could endure without relying on men. Now reality had dealt them a harsh blow. Lu Yuan was undoubtedly operating on an entirely different level. The divide was far too great, so vast that they did not even have the energy left to feel jealous. Gulan sat in the corner, watching their stunned, bewildered faces, and shook her head faintly. She had suspected Lu Yuan's hideout was exceptional, yet she had never imagined it would reach such heights. Solving water and power shortages amid the apocalypse exceeded all her expectations. How exactly had Lu Yuan managed it? At that moment, someone glanced toward the master bedroom and asked curiously, Yaki has stayed locked in her room ever since we returned. What's wrong with her? I'm not sure. She's been acting strange. Could something have happened to her? Lu Yuan did not remain in the master bedroom for long. He got up and walked out into the living room. The lights were switched on, flooding the space with brightness. The newly installed circuit banished the dimness that had lingered in the safe house before. LED light strips cast clear outlines of every object. Staring at the well-lit room, Lu Yuan reached out and flipped the light switch off. The camping lamp flickered back to life, its warm yellow glow confined to a small radius, plunging most of the room back into shadow. Now that he had stable water and electricity, there was no urgent need to conserve power as strictly as before. Still, the idea troubled him. In this dark, shadow-shrouded world, keeping bright lights burning constantly was likely unwise. Caution remained essential. Lu Yuan lay down on the living room sofa, resting his hands beneath his head, staring at the shadows across the ceiling, lost in quiet thought. The room was silent, save for an almost imperceptible low hum of electric current from the nuclear generator. He mentally reviewed their current circumstances. The safe house had running water, electricity, and stockpiled food. Supplies were enough to sustain the 3 of them for a good while. With power restored, the refrigerator functioned, allowing food to be preserved longer. The mysterious water tank delivered a steady supply of water every day, and the nuclear generator ran nonstop. Little by little, He had transformed this apartment into a small fortress. While it was not impenetrable, it was unquestionably the safest corner within the entire building. With the system at his disposal, there was no reason to panic. He simply needed to complete daily check-ins, accumulate resources steadily, and deal with whatever threats came his way. Lu Yuan walked over to the window. His apartment occupied a high-end residential tower fitted with floor-to-ceiling glass windows. A balcony stretched outside. He usually kept heavy curtains drawn, wary of strange entities lurking in the darkness. Today, however, Lu Yuan stepped up to the window and gently pulled the curtains aside. He wanted to look out at the world beyond. Peering outside, he saw the sky stained a dull crimson, oppressive and hopeless, devoid of any sign of life. The world outside remained deathly quiet. Nothing stirred. Before he gained night vision, Lu Yuan could only see endless blackness beyond the glass. Now, with enhanced night vision, he could make out rough shapes and silhouettes. His unit was on the 21st floor, so his view was limited. The area below was swallowed by thick black fog, hiding everything from sight. Lu Yuan could only gaze straight ahead. Not far away stood another towering building. It was not a residential complex, but an office tower. Before the apocalypse, it had been filled with office workers. He wondered what it looked like now. The office building also featured floor-to-ceiling windows, and a silhouette seemed to be visible behind one pane. It looked as though a figure stood inside the office tower, staring back toward him. Lu Yuan felt no fear. He did not believe it was a person. He had seen that silhouette before. He first spotted it shortly after moving into this apartment. While its shape resembled a human being, Lu Yuan suspected it was not alive. After all, it had never moved an inch for days on end, standing perfectly still like a statue, continuously watching his apartment. He guessed it was either a mannequin or a hanging garment of some sort. He pushed the thought aside. It was better not to stare too long at outside anomalies. After a brief glance, Lu Yuan closed the curtains and returned to the sofa. He settled back down and waited. The time on his phone soon ticked to 12 o'clock. A translucent interface materialized in the void at the back of his mind, right on schedule. Check-in time available. Lu Yuan silently thought the command to check in. The text on the panel flickered, then lines of notifications slowly appeared. Check-in successful. Obtained supplies. Grade a mechanical equipment set ×1. Obtained attribute points. Strength +1 current strength. 8-9. Obtained trait. Blood of the Silver Knight S rank. Your blood possesses sacred purifying properties, inflicting a 200 suppression effect upon all corrupted beings. Corrupted creatures will instinctively feel fear and avoid approaching you. Passive effect. Lu Yuan's mind raced as he read the information on the panel. First, the attribute point. His strength had increased once more. His physical condition was already approaching the peak of ordinary human capability. Coupled with steady improvements to his stamina, spirit, and strength attributes, he was far stronger. He was far stronger than he had been at the start of the apocalypse. His physical abilities now vastly outstripped those of regular people. Next came the mechanical equipment set. He stood and walked toward the coffee table. A black metal crate materialized out of thin air on the empty living room floor. It was larger than previous supply crates, coated with matte fog paint, and carved with streamlined mechanical patterns along its edges. Lu Yuan knelt down and lifted the lid. Neatly arranged items rested on black velvet padding, glinting with cold metallic luster. A combat sword lay horizontally on top. The blade measured roughly 1 meter long. Its streamlined edge shimmered with dull silver light. Fine mechanical grooves lined the section near the hilt, designed for internal power mechanisms to drive the blade. Lu Yuan picked it up and tested the grip. It was lighter than he expected, and the handle curved perfectly to fit his palm, as if custom made for him. He swung it once. The blade sliced through the air with a sharp, clean whoosh. It felt perfectly balanced, razor-sharp, and capable of delivering devastating force. Its unique mechanical structure allowed Lu Yuan to unleash 7 to 8 times his normal strength. With this blade, slaying the flesh monster he had fought the previous day would pose no difficulty. Beneath the combat sword rested 2 composite bows of differing designs. One was entirely silver-white, with faint blue veins running along its limbs, as though electric currents flowed within. The other was dark crimson, a faint warm glow hovering across its surface. Lu Yuan lifted them and tested their weight. Neither was heavy, and they sat smoothly in his hands. If these mechanical composite bows required minimal physical strength and only basic aiming skill to fire, they would be an invaluable asset for his group, which lacked any long-range weaponry. According to the description, one bow channeled electricity and the other fire. Hidden energy was built into each arrow. No ammunition needed to be loaded to unleash those elemental forces. They were extraordinarily powerful. Two more sets of items lay at the bottom of the crate. These were thin metal plates etched with intricate patterns, forming wearable armor components. Lu Yuan picked one up. It felt cold to the touch, lined with soft cushioning where it made contact with skin, though he had yet to figure out how to assemble and wear them. This was a mechanical alloy protective kit. The system description stated that once equipped, it would detect incoming attacks and activate defensive barriers automatically. The promise alone brought him a measure of reassurance. Lu Yuan placed the combat sword back inside the crate, closed the lid, and leaned against the coffee table for a moment. Acquiring this equipment instantly elevated his combat prowess to a new level. Before now, he had relied solely on the fire axe for close-quarters fighting. While functional, it came with heavy limitations and a low-damage ceiling. With the mechanical combat sword and two composite bows, he now possessed both ranged and melee capabilities. The protective kit was effectively an extra lifeline. Then there was the S-rank trait, Blood of the Silver Knight. A warm current surged through Lu Yuan's body. His blood briefly shimmered with a sacred golden glow before returning to normal. Beyond that, he felt no immediate change. It granted him the ability to intimidate corrupted beings. He was unsure exactly what qualified as corrupted beings. Did the flesh monsters fall into that category? What about the shadowy figures that spoke in the corridors? Or the pale, drifting specters he had seen the night before? The system offered no precise definition, only stating that all corrupted creatures would feel fear in his presence. The scope could be broad or narrow. If the ability affected all monsters, he would constantly carry an aura of intimidation wherever he went. If it only worked against specific types of entities, its utility would be more limited. Still, he was in no hurry. An S-rank trait would never be a useless reward from the system. He would learn when and how effectively it functioned when the time came. For now, the mechanical equipment set was his most valuable gain. Armed with this gear, Lu Yuan's upcoming explorations throughout the high-rise building would become far less arduous. Just as Lu Yuan was lost in these thoughts, he suddenly froze. An indescribable sensation crept up his back, as if someone's gaze was sliding across his skin. Lu Yuan stiffened for a split second before whipping his head around, his gaze locking sharply onto the French window. The curtains were drawn. Thick fabric covered most of the window, leaving only a narrow gap. Beyond the slit stretched the dark red sky shrouded in billowing black mist. Nothing could be seen except the murky dim light, yet he could feel it clearly. That oppressive sense of being watched, of being locked onto by something far away, continuously seeped in through the crack. Without hesitation, he pulled the mechanical alloy combat knife out of the storage box, stride over to the French window, and yanked the curtains open. Nothing was outside. The dark red sky hung overhead like a faded, frozen old photograph, and black mist swirled slowly in the air. The world outside the building remained lifeless and bleak, with no sign of any moving living creature. The opposite high-rise stood dozens of meters away, enveloped in fog. Its glass curtain wall reflected dull light, as silent as it had been for days. Lu Yuan's eyes swept rapidly across every floor of the opposite building, from the top floor down to the ground floor. His gaze moved as swiftly and precisely as a scanner. No human figures, no traces of movement, no strange dark spots. He narrowed his eyes and checked again, still finding nothing. Could it have just been an illusion? He was about to look away and close the window. Then his pupils abruptly constricted. On the 19th floor of the opposite building, behind one window, something was missing. That dark silhouette was gone. The shadow that had stood inside the building, silently watching their side for more than 10 days, had vanished without a trace. A chill surged through Lu Yuan. He quickly closed the curtains and stepped back. Even after retreating, his heart still raced with unease. He had long assumed the silhouette was merely hanging clothing or a mannequin. If that figure was actually a person or some kind of monster, the implications were deeply unsettling. It was not merely the existence of a monster that troubled him. There was something different about that shadow. It did not behave like an ordinary monster. It observed everything, watching Lu Yuan and the others, as if it was watching a drama, or some sort of performance. Creatures like this were terrifying. Whether human, monster, or some unknown being, it possessed extraordinary intelligence. It seemed to hold all the strings before. Lu Yuan thought he knew why it had disappeared now, the blood of the true Silver Knight. His acquisition of the blood of the true Silver Knight had likely far exceeded the creature's expectations and even filled it with fear, driving it away. Interesting, rewards granted by the system were truly never inferior. A cold smirk tugged at the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth. He did not need to worry excessively. When soldiers come, we block them. When floods rise, we build dikes. With the system supporting him, he only needed to keep signing in quietly, and everything would be fine. No matter how powerful these strange entities were, could they possibly surpass the system? In the corner of room 201, several people sat huddled together. Su Wan, Tang Shi, Qini, Lin Muxue, and Lin Mushuang gathered in the relatively quiet space beside the sofa, talking in hushed voices. The rest of the group rested lazily on the other side, paying them no attention. The door to Fang Yaqi's master bedroom stayed shut. A thin streak of light leaked out from beneath the door frame. Yet there was no sound of anyone opening it. Su Wan spoke first, her voice lowered but urgent. Girls, I believe all of you understand our current situation. Fang Yaqi has shut herself away. We cannot count on her anymore. If things continue like this, we will keep surviving only on compressed biscuits until our food runs out, and we will starve to death.